Hey, welcome back. This is your brother Abdul Wadud, aka Questman, coming at you once again live. Soul Journey of Life, Conscious Black Social Media. Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, shalom, hotep, peace be with you. Blessings, love, mercy, compassion. Just trying to keep the light on, right? Okay. So, tonight we have a discussion to have. God. Possibly the most touchy of all conversations, regarded by many and disregarded, at least in words, by others. The terms, meanings, and ideas associated with this word are many. I'd like to dig into that tonight. And for those who might want to know, Mustafa is doing well as his siblings. They're doing well. One thing I've noticed about my offspring is we like to eat. And Mustafa is no exception. He will drink and drink and drink until his belly becomes very round. And he realizes, but wait a minute, I've got to breathe. You know. Yeah, I'm a little bit congested myself. You might be able to hear in my voice. And so I've got here the ginseng tea with a little mixture of turmeric and cardamom seeds to try to improve my anatomical conditioning. So there is a saying, and by the way, before I get to that saying, I will say that there will be an invite link shortly after this moment of talk to invite anyone with questions, comments, and the like. And this actually was an inspired conversation. In a previous live, I was asked a question by a brother regarding, in essence, how did the Almighty come to be? I'm paraphrasing the question, but that is the essence of the nature of the question. Yes, indeed. Shalom, big brother. And so I figured that was a very good very good question for a very good conversation to have all by itself. Um, and so I figured, why not? We need to be uh, developed and mature enough to build on these conversations if we expect to get anywhere with what we're supposed to be striving for. There's an old saying. It's attributed to an adept by the name of Lao Tzu. According to the quote, he who knows does not speak, and he who speaks does not know. Some of us speak of God in a mystifying way, others on the basis of reason. Some see in the God, as a servant of God, as a child of God, a part of God, and so on and on and on are the ways that people have been regarding God, or the term God, the God, gods, goddesses, godly, godlike, and so on. Some express the difference between the meaning of the Most High versus lesser and greater gods, and often will even use a lowercase g when, identifying the difference. There are monotheists, polytheists, theists, and more. The question of the hour being who, what, how, why, where, and even when is God? Can this even be known, some might ask, and if knowable, would all draw the same conclusion as to the focus of the conversation? Again, this might offend some as a touchy subject, as it tends to be, so buckle your safety belts, I advise. It's okay to live inside a box, I would say, so long as you know that eventually you need to come outside and do some shopping, socializing, and go to work. What if I told you that none of us who have ever spoken about God on the surface of this earth, us as humans, who have ever spoken about God, have actually spoken about God? I'm going to say that again in case you missed it. What if I told you that none of us who have ever spoken about God have actually spoken about God? Rather, we have only spoken of our experiences, which can only be attributed to the presence, power, and glory of God. The closest conversations regarding God, it may be agreed, has come from the mouths of holy prophets, messengers, sages, adepts, enlightened ones, and so on, of old and even of present. You may not so readily agree that there have been those who perhaps those who whole scale reject the opinion or idea or fact or concept that God is, and have been among those who have produced the closest argument regarding God. I want to say it this way. Suppose that some of the people who have been the most flamboyant in rejecting the idea that God is have in turn, maybe perhaps unwittingly, brought about the most powerful of arguments, you understand, which in turn actually prove God is as opposed to God isn't. That those people who have this position have actually produced the greatest of arguments, ending up with the greatest results. You may have heard me say, none of us have actually ever really spoken of God whenever we actually speak of God. In ancient Hebrew circles, you will even find that some were even prohibited from speaking a word that was understood to be a name or even the name of God. Believe it or not, the fact still exists to this day. I have been using this word, God, all the while knowing that this word in no way is satisfying to many of us regarding the matter. Even so, I am using it because, for the most part, as well as regarding speaking the English language, I know we are all familiar with the term, and in order to not confuse or lose the listener because of titles which you might prefer and others might prefer something different, even myself, there's different terms that I would prefer to use. Um, this word will play as neutral for the time being in the course of this talk. Because I know that sometimes when you use certain words, if others don't feel like they associate with that word, they shut off their ability to listen and hear. Someone once posted and sent to me this question: what is the name of the one and only true God? Now, that question in itself packs all kinds of assumptions, perhaps, perspectives, whatever the case may be. That being that there's only one and only one true God. Personally, I accept the question as it is, but perhaps there are those who will say, well, wait a minute. How do you know the one? How do you know that there's only, and so on and so on? Anyway, to the question, what is the name of the one and only true God? To this I replied, you are asking for one name of one who has infinite names, speaks with the voice of many waters, and whose knowledge would exhaust every ocean if they were ink times uncountable. Things have one or a few names. The one, the mighty, the ever-living, the wise, the creator, the fashioner, the loving, the most merciful, the compassionate, on and on and on the naming goes, does not have only one true name. Rather, every beautiful and glorious name, those you know of and those you do not, belong to the one who brought you into being. An infinitum of true names belongs to that one. To this the person replied, quoting, you are wise, I can call you wise all day and all life long. It would be a beautiful name and may delight you. Still, you have a unique name that carry the function of the name, which is to distinguish you from Mr. Wise from the other wise people around us. What is the unique name for the one and only true God, the Creator, the Almighty, the All-Welling? I will make it easy for you and me. Simply in my book of authority, the name is Allah. I am asking people of all religions, do they have a unique name for the one and only true God they believe in? So to this reply, and I'm quoting, to this I replied, of my books of authority, of them is the Quran. However, the Quran does not say that Allah has only one name or only 99 names, nor does it say his name is Allah. Rather, La ilaha illallah means no God but the God. You are a human as I am. We are not the God. Human is human, the God is the God. But this human's name, this one right here, is Abdul Wadud, and you are so and so. Naming in such a way is something which applies to the experience of being a human. The 99 names quoted that people often refer to when they say the 99 names of Allah is from a saying or a quoting of a report attributed to the Prophet. It's not from the Quran. But the saying is like this. Narrated Abu Huraira, Allah's messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, Allah has 99 names, 100 less one, and he who memorizes them all by heart will enter paradise. Again, that's not coming from the Quran, that's coming from a saying attributed to the Prophet. And the commentator of that says to count something means to know it by heart. Okay. So again, not Quran. Instead, Quran says this in translation. And to Allah belongs the best names. So invoke him by them and leave those who practice deviation concerning his names. They will be recompensed for what they have been doing. Surah Araf 180. This is also why we say in the name of, and as in belonging to, possession of Allah, the God. The God not being the name, but what we are talking about. The names are what come after, and as such are called such. Asma, names. Ul Husna, beautiful, beautiful names. Allah is not Asma, the names. Ar Rahman, Ar Rahim, and let me say that. Ar Rahman, Ar Rahim, and so on, are Asma, the names of. Again, we are talking about what we are talking about is not a human. We are talking about Allah, called by many beautiful names. We have been revealed, and those we do not even know. Nowhere in our book of authority does it describe Allah as having only one name, one true name, or any limit of names. I do not comment here to cause you any disrespect, as based on your words, us holding the same book of authority as viable, you are my brother. I am only stating what is clear to me. Could be wrong, but I haven't seen the evidence as of yet. Salam alaikum. Okay. I wanted to add, I'm commenting when I was reading through this posting. I commented to myself later. I would add comment on this conversation with these words. To the human, for example, belong all these body parts. Example, arm, an arm, a leg, an arm and a head. Here, human is not the name of the individual, but a term used to describe the object of conversation based upon its nature. The human could be named Mustafa, but human is what Mustafa is. Similarly, to say to Allah belongs the best names, the very statement disqualifies the word Allah and so on from being a name, but a word used to describe who or what has these best names. The best names are his names, according to the verse. Further, let's continue. The word Yahweh, again, is not a name, but rather a prelude to a name. It literally means something like he is or he exists, albeit there are many traditions who hold to the translation of this word as being God Almighty. The word Yahweh can't contain any part of it that means the word God. The word for Almighty in Hebrew is El Shaddai, which is interesting because the same word in Arabic means all together, which, by the way, can translate, as I mentioned, all together, which in my opinion is a beautiful way to say the one unified. The word in Arabic is Azza Wajal, and also Al-Allah, and in Swahili, Winyinzi. I am aware that often multiple terms have been used to mean Most High, but let us reflect upon the position that I put forth. So the Hebrew expression only reveals a prelude of the name, but not the name. Okay, the saying "he is" implies two things: a fact of the matter expression simply implying existing, as in to be, or that a sentence is incomplete, left open for any attribute to fill in a blank, so to speak, as in I am kind, I am wise, I am all-knowing, etc. For one to speak personally, you would say I am. To say I am is a word that carries the same weight as the third person use. He is, in terms of the two meanings that I mentioned. Since we know or have learned that the Hebrew peoples had been forbidden to say the name of God, again here making it clear that the word God is not a name, and instead the people have been confined to using the word Yahweh literally. He is, he exists, I am, I exist, or even he exists blank, or I exist blank, but never actually using the word the name of God in conversation or in speech. Okay, pardon me here. Got stuff going on my phone. Spammers on my phone there, messages. That we never truly speak about God whenever we perceive ourselves to speak about God. Some would say, by reason, why the early Hebrews did not or were forbidden to speak the name of God was due to sin. Let us take that on for size. When in sin, one is not in the same time, one is not at the same time in righteousness. And when you're not in righteousness, you're not upon right knowledge. This condition in and of itself would prevent one from speaking of higher levels of wisdom. And so, even if the Hebrews were not commanded to speak the name or forbidden to speak the name, they wouldn't have been able to do so either way. And even if they could phonetically speak a verbal word from their lips and ink the words upon paper, they would not have had the slightest idea of what they wrote or what they have said. In any case, what we write or what we say with pen or speak out from our mouth are finite attempts to speak about the infinite. By the very nature of the word infinite, such would defy any single word or written word, spoken or written down, used to identify the infinitum. Not just in so-called religious circles, but even in those of science and philosophy. According to a story in one scripture, there were a people who asked God to manifest their presence so that their faith would increase. The prophet pointed towards a mountain for the purpose of God manifesting. The mountain was obliterated. One might then reason, if a mountain was not able to remain from the God manifesting presence, how would ink or words from your physical lips be able to hold a name of one who is infinite? No single word or speech could ever do so. Even this very conversation remains distant from being able to deal with the focus of discussion. It is a matter of complexity, perhaps the reason for so much division in the world over it. But what if I were to tell you, again, what if I were to tell you that at the same time, it is a matter of simplicity? The reason why, in other ways, humanity is in fact unified. The unity division cycle have been playing out over and over again in history, accepting and rejecting, agreeing and disagreeing. And in my humble opinion, it makes sense that it should be so. Even a farmer desires to separate the wheat from the grass when the time is appropriate for harvesting. Words are intended to unify. To say any words of the words that we are let me say it this way. To say any of the words we use to speak about God, it is meant to communicate to any other who is familiar with the words commonality, implying you both are on the same page in practice regarding what is to be understood about that word. If we never really are able to speak about God when we write and speak, then how is it possible to acknowledge that God is? How is it then possible if the one who knows does not speak and the one who speaks does not know? This is where we must understand our nature. What, who, how, why, and yes, even when we are. And consider an answer to this, which I believe is 100% doubt-free and definitely possible. Something that we do daily, believe it or not. It has been said, excuse me, like I said, I'm a little congested. It has been said, the words of the scriptures, including the Quran, had been inspired upon the heart of the individual. It's there that I'd like us to put our intention, because often when we have these conversations, we're not communicating with the heart. Rather, we're communicating with scholastic learning. We're communicating with what we read in books, not in our inner being, our inner self, our heart. You understand? We don't communicate that way often. When people are disputing and debating, they tend to be disputing and debating, influenced by an ego and influenced by whatever we think we know, not heart. That kind of communication is different. The Prophet Muhammad spoke Arabic, which is a language of the many languages there are. Does it mean that the God speaks Arabic? It does not. Let me ask you then, when you dream, what language do you dream in? Similarly, when one is inspired for whatever the reason and whatever the stimulus, they would be inspired in the language they speak, if you're to understand what's being said. There are possible exceptions to this, but in the case where someone might be inspired with words of another language they don't know, such would be very difficult for the person themselves to understand, and even if the language was understood, still does not mean the person understands what is being inspired. And there has been cases like that where people have been inspired and they didn't know what the heck they were seeing. They could understand what was being said. It wasn't even in their language, but they didn't have the slightest comprehension of what was happening at that time of inspiration. We're speaking English right now. Many of you, and if you've been watching my lives, know how I feel about that. In any case, since we're kind of stuck with this language for the time being, while we are ideally speaking the same language, yet and still we find ourselves suffering from confusion and understanding one another. Even if we are in accord with this, if the listener does not understand the nature of what is being said due to lack of experience, knowledge, or otherwise, you might still find yourself in a state of confusion. This reminds me of a childhood experience that I can share with you. My younger brother was, as we were riding in the car with our father and mother, my younger brother once was watching the setting of the sun. As we were in the back seat of the car, he asked, "Where does the sun land when it goes down?" I reflected and responded. Again, I was about 5 years old when this took place. In my late, 5 years old. I reflected and responded. "It does not land," I said, "but it looks like it lands because of the movement of what we are on." Now, mind you, I was in my late 5th year as a child and did not quite understand the nature of the sun myself. But from what I could observe and reason, it is not possible for the sun to land. It was not possible that the sun was landing, only the appearance that it was landing. Because I would ask myself, well, if it was landing, then why aren't the trees catching on fire? And I even, found my brother inquiring about the same. Therefore, it only made sense to me that the sun didn't land. That simply you had the appearance or the illusion that it was doing so. There is much we observe in life of which we either cannot speak of due to lack of understanding, and even if understood, lack of words to express the experience or experiences of, and we excuse me, and often some of the experiences that we do go through, we find that there's no reason to speak of it, or words that you can resource to speak of it. We hear music, for example, but only the people who have a connection to the song would really feel, that is, passionately understand the song as it was meant to be understood. And people who tend to be outside of that loop, while they might enjoy the music, you understand, in some way, they may not readily be able to connect with the song. You understand? Because it's not communicating to their heart. It's not communicating to their, if you would, spiritual language. Water running, birds singing, a wind flowing, the warmth of a hug from a loved one, a moment of eureka, enlightenment, and so much more, to the conscious person, are ways in which the God is communicating and or making his presence known. It has been said, God has been said, God is not the author, of confusion. And this is certainly true when one reflects. Our inability to fully understand the words to use regarding the infinite one keeps us short of the conversation, and we settle for the use of words we are comfortable with or have been taught regarding with regards to who we speak of. Often that be the source of our confusion and not any real truth of the matter, but whatever formulas we've allowed ourselves to be comfortable with in use. I gave you an example. I'm comfortable with using the word Allah, but I find that being in conflict with words that other people might use. But in the same term, because of things that I've learned in my life and experiences, I'm also comfortable with using many other words. Some of them may be used by other people, and I don't find myself to be indifferent either way. Speaking of the words which we speak, there are many, but what if I were to tell you, if we were to gather all of our words which we speak and write in regards to God, they would still be limited and minuscule to all that could be said if we only knew. Not only mentioned, it still wouldn't amount to, you understand, an absolute truth regarding the nature or regarding the being or regarding the truth about God. If all our words were collected together, we were to gather all of them all together and say, well, this is what it is, and this is what it, just gather all our words together, it still would not, it would pale in comparison to the greater truth. In my opinion, from what I can observe, in many ways, those who of the earth, those people, us of the earth, are in fact speaking a single truth. It may not be easily recognized given all the clouds of confusion. The clouds being the division of sects holding on to false notions of patriotism. That is, if it does not carry their own label, if it is not spoken in a tongue that they've accepted or approved of, or if it isn't spoken or associated with individuals whom they've approved of, then it can't be acceptable. It can't be identified as something acceptable. And also, if it's not in the way we have confined ourselves to understanding to an understanding of the matter to be, we consider it false. If it doesn't come from your mouth, your way, your scripture, your book, your title, your theme, then we immediately reject it as false. Those that do that. I'll give you an example. And that, by the way, is even if the definition of the word, the very words used by another people under another label, means exactly the same thing. I'll give you an example. As I was saying, the word neteru literally means the same thing by definition that Elohim and even Allahumma means. And in turn, both of these words, all of these words, are often used in the same exact way as even the words heavenly host, malak, and more. And yet, some would even argue that the words deity and deities also carry the same meanings or are used to express the same way. Furthermore, these words tend to be used in a way distinct from speaking of what is meant when saying Most High or Yahweh or Allah or even the Tao. In every case, the object being hidden from conversation, never spoken of, only using generalized words. This is what happens when anytime we get, and this is why it gets very blurry, right? Very blurry. It gets very blurry because the higher we get, the more out of our scope, out of our ability to speak of the matter, the more that reality starts to set in. Okay. So what I'm going to do, perfect timing, big brother. He asked a question, but I'm going to put this link up so that he can ask directly. Let me get this link. I got to go back over here. So yes, indeed, it's in short summary of what I just said there. This is a hefty conversation, family, and I want to allow the opportunity, and I'm going to tell you, I don't ascribe myself, while some may say Oh, okay, yeah. Um, I don't ascribe to being a scholar. I will tell you readily, I'm a student of knowledge, and that is my pursuit. And all I can express to you, all I could ever express to you, is what I observe and how my ability to see it or interpret it, um, how I can communicate that. And I will tell you readily that there's a lot of things that I've observed in this pursuit of knowledge that I have no words for. There's things that I've experienced in life that I have no words for. But ultimately, what I mean by saying God is, through it all, I have I have experienced an abundance of evidence in favor of what those words mean to me as an individual and what I see that they mean to humanity, even if we don't use those specific English words. When I go across the world, metaphorically speaking, when it comes to the pursuit of knowledge, I find the same essential position is taken, even by those who will call themselves names that mean that imply that they reject the idea of God is. If you, through the course of their conversation, you will explore that they've said something in their wordage that, by definition, implies the same thing. So it only proves to me, like one source says, that everything, wherever you turn your face, there's the face of God. Meaning that everything is given clear testimony to this ultimate truth. We may not have the words to say, and we'll argue it to our death, perhaps some of us. But at the end of the day, something about us, something from us, through words, through action, through behavior, will bear witness. So let me put this invite here, as I was trying to do. Okay. So here's the invitation link. If you have any comments or questions, or just like to stir up some stuff, let's do it. Let me do this. Now that's pinned at the top. All right. So there's the invite. And like I said, I for personally, while I am confident in where I stand regarding the matter, my confidence is the type of confidence that can evolve or that can ascend or improve. You understand? Because when you're pursuing knowledge, that means that's an ongoing thing. You understand? That's ongoing. That means I'm continually doing this. That means there's always something that I don't know that could improve, validate, or correct, any, possible misunderstanding, oversight, undersight, whatever the case may be. And so I believe that a person should remain that way, because when I look at the night sky, I see ongoing. And because of the nature that we ascribe, one of those names that we describe to the God is infinity. And that implies that when you exist without an end, that includes the nature of your knowledge. That includes the nature of what you know, what knowledge is of you, all of that. And so for me, it's impossible for me to ever think that I could gain so much knowledge that there's nothing more to know, that there's nothing more that I can learn, or that even what I perceive as knowledge that I've learned thus far could possibly be corrected. You understand? Could possibly be corrected. And so, because the nature of this thing is like clay, it's constantly capable of being molded. You understand? And fashioned. You understand? So the door, to that pursuit remains open for me. Let's see here. So yeah, I have the link right there, and I know there's so many factions of us people who've probably built on similar conversations. The tea is very good again. if you want to know, is ginger, turmeric. Do I have the jar? Yeah, right here. It's got ginger and some other things, real quick. Oh man, see, I can't even see because it's kind of dark because I got to keep the backdrop there. Yeah, turmeric, ginger, coconut, spice, black pepper, chicory root, and of course I added some more ginger, pure ginger, well, ginger outside of this mixture here, and cardamom seeds. You understand? And my objective is to fight and combat that which is ailing me right now. And some natural cane sugar, by the way, which is very good. All right, we have our brother on the scene. Um, like you to welcome brother Bossman Blake, and I'll try to, if I can remember, I'll have a link to his channel. But of course, you could definitely I think you could type the name in Bossman Blake, like you see it there. But I'll put the link in the description, God willing, inshallah. So now, peace and blessings, brother. If you can hear me.
Peace and blessings. Peace and blessings.
Welcome, welcome. Yes, indeed. As we know, this is a very, you know, a very interesting subject, and I would have to, if I'm right to assume that you yourself are a person who is accepting to the fact, I'd say, that God is.
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay. So when we're saying that, let me do this to the screen there. There we go. All right. When we're saying that, what comes to your mind?
The Creator,
Mm-hmm.
the Almighty. He is. I mean, it's. Let me ask you this first before we get started.
Go right ahead.
Anything that you was taught about God, and that's the reason I used that term last time instead of saying God, because I know how certain people feel about that term.
Right, right.
But what you was taught as a child, is there anything that you have changed your mind about when it comes to the God that you serve?
To some extent, yes. Of course, I was brought up under a diverse family. My father and his relatives came up through what's called Coptic Christianity, right? Which is based or finds its roots in Ethiopia, as far as the theology of it's concerned. Um, then I had other elements, that came. I've experienced Protestant. I can't even say it right now because my nose is messed up. As I've, the experience of being a Protestant, um, Methodist, Baptist, you name it, and of course, even as what brought me to the way that I am now, quote unquote Muslim. Even through that, I found that I had to encounter varying factions, views, opinions, sets, all the same. And so, what got me to where I'm at now was me striving to look through words themselves. And not only just words, I often tell people this all the time. Sometimes I have to close the book and look up, look out. You understand what I'm saying? Because sometimes we it's like we're looking like this in our life. And for example, it's like if you had a tool book teaching you how to build a toy house. At some point, you got to put the manual down and get the tools out and start to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you start to work and get the experience, you might see something more than what you were able to read about in the instructions. Instructions simply being a guideline, a stepping stone to achieving an end. And so that's kind of how I started. When for example, one of the names of the Quran is the reminder. Something if it's called a reminder, that means I once knew these things. And so, when I mentioned earlier, the Quran is said to have been revealed upon the heart of Muhammad. So I'm saying this means it wasn't a scholastic um, method of reaching him. So if his heart had to be open for this to come to him, then why don't I translate or interpret whatever I'm reading that's supposed to be scripture? If it's meant for the heart, why don't I translate it with the heart over the scholastic schools, if you will, that we find today? And so that's what got me to where I'd ask myself, well, what does this word mean? And then as I'm going across, studying like the Tao Te Ching and I Ching and Bhagavad Gita and all these other sources, I'm saying, well, look, these words mean the exact same thing as what it's saying right here. But the people that are involved, or I mean, literally, if you go over to Pakistan right now, right next door is India, where people who are vehement adherents uh, to the Bhagavad Gita, a good portion of them, right?
Yeah.
But these are arch enemies right now. I mean, one false move and they're going at it. So, but I mean, this is to show you how this I call it like a false patriotism, if anything, because they're holding on to, oh, this is the Pakistani way or this is the Hindi way, but you're saying the same thing.
So let me ask you this then. So is the teachings, which you have the Quran, you have the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
would you say, which we know God didn't create religion,
Yeah.
but would you say the teachings in these different religions in the world today is like an instruction manual of you putting together this toy house that has Spanish and English?
Yeah.
Would you say that? Or is it's a totally different meaning throughout religions? Answer that.
Okay. Well, here's something I've seen before, where some people they're building this house. You understand? Some of the people are speaking English. Some of the people are able to speak afar and don't understand English. But they've got to build this house. You understand? And there's only this manual. So eventually they learn a way or discover a way to communicate and they'll start. I don't know if you've ever seen um, some brothers and sisters in Africa when they build stuff or when they start doing stuff, they start singing a song and it makes like a rhythm, like they'll be like something like that. I can't say the words, but it starts forming a rhythm where everybody just sort of starts falling in the sync and operating on code. Next thing you know, not a house, but a like a 5-story building ends up getting built. You understand? And some of the people, like I said, when I don't know Afar, I end up leading a people in the Salat who all the people that were in the congregation in that salat spoke afar. I don't speak afar, but yet, all I did when I came there, I made a salat and I called a don. Right, some people heard that and insisted that I lead the next salat, so I did. And the reason why that is essentially there was an understanding. You understand? There was nobody had to say anything. In fact, even me being insisted upon to lead the salat. How did I know that if nobody could speak what I was speaking? There was um a and how can I put it? The mood or the heart or the direction towards that is what I was compelled to. I'm saying that because how do I know that I was instructed or that they insisted? Because insisted is the word I'm using. Because insistent means that there's something out of what they're doing that lets me know they're insisting that I lead this salat for them.
So, of course, nobody knows what happened after
Mm-hmm.
death.
Yeah.
And if the Bible is the instructions or the Quran is the instructions on how to live to make it to the promised land, which I don't know if you believe in heaven or hell or not, you will never know if what you follow throughout your entire life, as far as your spirituality, help you make it to the promised land. You
Mm-hmm.
feel what I'm saying? So
You said that you said you would never know.
you will never know until you die. And
Okay,
you know what I'm saying? I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if you
let me
believe
ask you
in.
this, because I do believe in the hereafter. Meaning that after this life, after I literally my flesh bites the dust here, that
Right.
there's a hereafter. In addition, that couples with accountability, meaning that there will be a judgment, there will be accountability. of all of what I did here, ultimately summing up to the essence of what was behind my doing, my intentions, in other words. Um, but there are elements to that because it's simple for me to say that these are my instructions for success. But the thing about the instructions is that, like for example, if in your toolbox not only is there the manual, but there's the tool. Again, I have to demonstrate the use of those tools to get a result. If I'm a farmer, there's certain things I'm going to learn over time to know that, hey, I don't want this type of soil, or I don't want to plant it in this type of environment. This is going to have this kind of result. So there's certain telltales that you learn from experience. Um, I said in one of your lives, what translate what the source of it is fa'ina mal yusri usra. Fa'ina mal yusri usra means or translates in English as, so verily after difficulty comes ease. So let's say that's a scripture word, and somebody saying, well, how do you know that's true, that after difficulty comes ease? Okay, there's other ways to deal with reasoning or to deal with the logic of this, the math of this. Okay, I know that when something reaches its extreme through metaphysics, through science, that it's got to turn over to its opposite, yin and
Absolutely.
yang, as the Asians will say. Like I said, same language. You go to Asia, they may not say fa'ina ma'al yusra yusra, but they're going to say yin and yang. And I'm saying,
Absolutely.
well, that's the same thing. That's the same logic that's being expressed here. As above, so below. Same logic. So, so what I'm saying here is that the same thing goes regarding your hereafter. The knowledge of your hereafter is going to be readily available to you if you simply observe the nature of what you exist in. Sometimes, like I said, we have to close the book and just look. And you can see that there's more going on. When you see that even in this life, on ground level, things alter into a transition. Your physical anatomy, brother, is matter. Matter doesn't get deleted. It can metamorphose into something else, but it doesn't vanish. So that means your DNA, which is the composition of your nature, once this body bites the dust, even physically, it's turning in. Those genetics are still there. It's turning and converting into something else. It could be a stone, a tree, a rock, a bush, a rabbit, whatever. But it's still there. If the rabbit comes and eats the grain that comes out, eats the plant that was growing out of that dirt, those DNA of brother boss man, he's digesting that. You understand? And whatever that means is getting translated to his offspring, his baby rabbits, and so on.
So these questions are building up to something. Just so
Yeah,
that's why they keep coming like this.
no problem. I
So
like it.
if if there are different religions and pretty much they have the same meaning in a sense, who created all these different religions if there's only one God?
Okay, let me ask you. I'm gonna put something like this. Okay, there is a type of arachnid that'll burrow itself in the ground and cover itself up so that its prey doesn't see it. So when the ant comes along, thinking there's something there for it to eat, instead these mandibles come out, snatch it up in, and it gets eaten. What I just expressed there is the art of deception, manifested in the form of arachnid. By that, I know that when I know that there's opposites, up, down, right, left, friend, foe, I know that by nature I have an enemy. You're not going to live on this planet without there being an enemy. That's the way you see everything. A plant's being eaten by its enemy. It's an enemy to the plant. It may not be an enemy to the herbivore that's eating it, but to the plant, it doesn't want to be eaten. It's doing all these things. Some plants will grow spikes. Some plants will do certain colors. Some plants will have glaze over their leaves. Why? Because they don't want to be eaten. But if they're overpowered by something that's stronger than it, they get eaten. A cow's mouth is stronger than a blade of grass. The fact that a grass grows as a blade is an attempt to try to deter would-be, enemies. Humanity is no different. We, by nature, we have a natural enemy. One of the tactics of an enemy, like I said, with the arachnid, is to make you believe or to deceive you in some way. One of the greatest acts of deception by said enemy is to make you believe that the enemy is not your enemy. And so you got this mixed up in everything. I always like to use time for sometimes. Excuse me. If you think about that we've been upon this planet for millions of years, okay, and things have been going about a certain way, right? Then all of a sudden, something new comes into the mix that's contradictory to the way that you've been going. You understand? And then all of a sudden, you know, you start to become corrupted and confused and manipulated and deceived. So one of the things that we can gather from this is, well, what is essential to us as a people? What is common to us? Sometimes we have to clear the table off of all the opinionated aspects and deal with the most fundamental aspects of our being, of our nature. You understand? In the
So,
face,
so that wouldn't be the original teachings.
what's that now?
So that wouldn't be the original teachings, like the teachings that you know
The
our
original teachings.
ancestors was taught.
Okay,
Because a lot
here
of things have changed now.
I agree, but the things that have changed are only apparent. Mathematics, right? If we were to go back 2 million years ago, guess what? 2 plus 2 still equals
Yeah.
boom. Okay, so the truth works like that. Okay, so sometimes one of the things that the Quran tells me to do, it says, quote unquote, have you not considered the Quran with care? Had it been from other than the God, then surely therein would be much discrepancy. So I use that analytically. If something is ultimately from a divine source, from God, then it will be free of discrepancy through and through and through. So I'm going to apply it. I'm not just talking about that if words were messed up or this or that. I'm talking about you using the eye of insight and seeing if it matches up with your own nature, physically, spiritually, mentally, and that which is around you. If you look up into the night sky, does it match up? If you look at the morning sky, does it match up? If you look within your own physical anatomy, does any of this match? Does your opinion about yourself match the environment that you live in, the natural environment that you live in? And when you find a harmony out of all that, that's where you're finding a true message.
How long have those teachings, like the Holy Quran and those teachings, been going on, man?
Okay, well, I'll speak in the case of the Quran first. Even the Quran tells you that this is simply confirming that which came before it. So for me, that's why for me, I'm not one that would ever. I mean, I know there are people who would argue me about the Quran, but I say why? It's telling you that it's only quoting or only talking about what's relevant, which came before it. It's telling you that it wasn't here first, in and of itself. Okay, according to historians, the Bible's only got it only covers, according to their time frame, a 6,000 year time span. I don't believe that's the purport of the Bible. I believe that, like the Quran, these are books of signs and symbols. I believe that our ancestors, I'm telling you personally, I'm thinking like, look, if those who came before us were people with wisdom, God conscious, enlightened, and close to God, if you would, the closer back you go, they're
Mm-hmm.
going to be aware of what's going to happen to their descendants. Like, look, we know that we're about to do some shenanigans. These people amongst us are about to get too curious, and there are about to be some things to go down that's going to shift the way how we live our life. An enemy is about to show up. That's different than anything we've ever encountered, right? They're aware of this, so they know they've got to do something to make sure that the grade of knowledge that they're having, that they're with, can make it to us. Okay, so sometimes you identify your enemy by knowing what they're incapable of, not just what they're capable of. So, for example, I know that a manifest form of our enemy is incapable of enduring the solar energy directly, as we are. So, for me, that's a sign. So, what other missing elements are there? That you have to that the enemy has to produce artificial mechanisms in order to reach the same objectives that we would be able to reach by nature, because our nature, as I mentioned before, our melanated qualities is deeper than the skin. It's magnetic, it's energizing, it's a conductive. But to shrink this up, our ancestors were aware and had the level of wisdom and cleverness, if you would, to know how to conceal something. That's why they're called signs, because they contain in it more than meets the eye. But they contain something that a person, if we adhere to our real nature, and put aside all this, mainly the ego, and really look at it as a sign, as signs, we'd be able to hear the message being communicated wherever, irrespective of wherever we are, and and ultimately irrespective of the uh the particular scriptures we're talking about. Because you ever put some puzzle pieces down and you see a child get a hold of them, the lie or the deception is to scatter it of the puzzle pieces. But at some point, the child will be able to reason that these pieces go a certain way, and eventually collect them together to form the image that was intended to be seen, and
So,
perhaps even more.
so when I asked you about, why with so many religions, one of the things you said was, you know, the enemy will put things in place to deceive you.
Yep.
Now going back to the reason why I asked you about how long the teachings of the Quran been around,
Hmm.
you even just taught me something. You said it means, I guess the Quran means, I mean, it was something that came after.
That's why it's called the reminder, right?
So again, that's something else that's being taught to another group of people when our ancestors wasn't taught about it.
Hmm.
So would you consider that the
Here,
enemy?
here's what I consider. Okay, one, while we hear the names of varying religions called about, I don't believe that there are varying religions. By a fact of the matter, I believe that there's ultimately one practical way. For example, if you would, brother, take a deep breath. If you could take a deep breath, guess what? You have to follow the same tradition that I have to follow in order to take in oxygen. Okay, the most basic truths are just like that. You understand? We all have to do it irrespective of where we are on this planet. And that's why I say sometimes we have to look outside of the book and compare it with our actual real experiences in life to be able to see whether or not, hey, is this solid or not? Now, as far as the Quran and the Prophet, I'd have to ask, well, for what purpose did this person make an appearance? Why was this person here? What was going on at that time that made Muhammad relevant? Okay, don't confuse that with what people do later on, because if you look at the Buddha and his students, they did something different than what Buddha taught later on. The same thing with the people of Moses. Even during the time of Messiah Yeshua, they were doing stuff different than what Moses came to them with. Okay, so we have to go and identify the righteous nature, whether that be there or not, in a person, and go there. So, for example, the word that was relevant to me for the Quran in general was in Surah Al-Ikhlas. It goes as such: Kul huwallahu ahad. I can stop there. Say, in the name of the God, the one. So my question was, when I saw that and heard that recited, if this is said here, remember what I just said earlier. Had it been from other than God, then there would be much discrepancy. So I said right here would have been something any objective person of the Quran would have targeted, because that's most fundamental over anything else. If that was all I got to read, you understand, and the book was burned up or whatever, or disappeared, that would be that right there is packed full of elevating wisdom than anything. The knowledge of the oneness of God I'm talking about. So I would consider, based upon reason, that everything in this book has to follow up with that. It has to be in sync with that. If it was to contradict the nature of oneness of that, then I would have myself something that came from the hand of an enemy. Okay, but since it doesn't, since wherever I go, our most fundamental statement that you hear shouted across the world, and I challenge anybody, if it's false, let me know how. La ilaha illallah, which means there is no God except the God. That's the basis of what this is all about. So I'm saying, well, okay, we're canceling out anything else except for the definite article being used in front of the word God. When you use the definite article, if I say, for example, I have a smartphone, right? I use the indefinite article a or an. That implies there are other smartphones that I may have, But presently, I'm showing you a smartphone from among the smartphones I have. But if I tell you that this is the smartphone that I own, that's telling you readily that I have no other smartphones but this one. Okay, so again, that goes back to this fundamental statement. You understand that for me is an elevating statement. Does this agree with Kul Hu Allahu Ahad? Say He is God the One, and you build from there. Again, a lot of our problem is we use the enemy's um, way of pursuit of knowledge, and in there is an error because the opponent is shut off from, if you would, divine knowledge. So isn't capable. Go ahead.
You say the enemy.
Yeah, the
You
enemy
got the God. You
and the
got
enemy.
the enemy. Is it safe to say you're talking about Satan?
Okay, I'm glad you did that because what you did was a polarity. I don't accept that as a polarity. What I accept is that all things originate from one. Now, and when they originate, whatever they have a equal opposite. Something that is its opposite, something that's its opponent. Okay, but all the same, as far as origination comes from one. You know, a zebra has a lion that chases after it. It can't do nothing. All it can do about that is run away. But all the same, the lion is there. The lion is the zebra's enemy. The zebra is the lion's prey. You understand what I'm saying? As a human being, we also have an opponent. You understand? I'm not just talking about. Sometimes I'm not even just talking about a physical opponent. Sometimes I'm talking about the one when you wake up in the morning and you go to the bathroom and you see that mirror right there. You understand? I've had one conversation where the nature of the conversation was for us to be cognizant of what we allow to enter our mind as programming, because these things affect the way we think. So, excuse me. So what I'm saying here, the comparative that I've mentioned, it's not. It wouldn't be for that. Well, here's the God and here's the devil. No, here's the God. Now, the nature of the devil is to make you perceive that there's a polarity. That here's the God and here's the devil.
Isn't that in the Bible?
Not in that way. Not in the way as it. See, when you say it this way, I say the same thing about our enemy. You're empowering the enemy. Okay, you're making it as if the enemy is on the same level, just the opposite. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Here's the God, here's the devil. You understand what I'm getting at?
I get what you're saying, but they definitely ain't on the same level.
I agree with that. I agree. And so that could only be possible, as you said, God is almighty. So that could only be possible if God is actually almighty. That means there is no comparative. There is no equal. There is nothing aside. Okay, so when we're talking about devil and evil and stuff like that, these could only be understood as created, beings or creations of. The question you might ask is, well, what would be the purpose of creating? But we've already mentioned that you can't go into the gym and expect to get buffed up without doing something that's opposite, something that's an obstacle towards your objective. You understand? Like they say, no pain, no gain. You have to have an opposite. Nobody likes pain, right? So pain is not what you're actually interested in. But if you want to improve and develop and become stronger, wiser, you have to have a resistance. This computer, right? Go ahead.
So have you ever heard that we were placed here to see if we can govern ourselves? Because from what I've read, Satan is the ruler of the earth. And God will come back once pretty much proven that we cannot govern ourselves. And who can go against that? We can't. If he said we can't, it ain't gonna happen. That's why I be thinking sometimes, like, we ask for unification, we want unity, we want peace. It's not gonna happen. Because that means we prove God wrong and say we can govern ourselves.
I can't entirely agree, and I'll tell you why. Okay, there's a nature in which we're called when regarding coming into being. The word is vicegerent. Vicegerent means that we are here to manifest the nature of the Most High. We're not the Most High, but we're here to manifest our effort. Our goal is to manifest the nature of the Most High in the greatest way of creation can on this planet. The mountains can't do it. The birds and bees can't do it. A bear can't do it. Only a human can do it. And why? Because of the unique ability that humanity has when they are at their best. And that's the ability to reason. Okay, that's what sets us apart from a bird, a turtle. We don't have a shell. We don't have wings. We have the capacity to reason, and that's what makes us unique. So it's in our reason. Sincere reason I'm talking about is qualifying, because sincerity is the prerequisite for being able to reason. The pursuit of knowledge, the prerequisite for obtaining it, is sincerity. So what I'm saying here is, when it comes to governing or whatnot, it's not that we can't govern. It's like anything. What made a witch an abominable person inside of a spiritual, religious person, is that their powers weren't attributed or associated with the Most High. That they associated with their own self, their own ego. So that whatever you do, your music, you got to attribute it to the Most High. Your skills, if you got any skills, like, oh man, I'm raw, everything remains raw, right? You couldn't do that. You couldn't flow. You couldn't speak. You couldn't jam. You couldn't stand up, bob your head, anything without being empowered. So it's not that we can't govern, it's that we need to recognize who empowers us as we do it. So that when we manifest our purpose in this life as a vicegerent, aka representative of the Most High, okay, we do it with the name of God over it, meaning in the name of, in the presence of, in the concept of manifesting, acknowledging the authority of the Most High. So that way our outcome is a righteous one. Right way one.
So they say everything good is God. If it's bad, it has nothing to do with him. then who's responsible for the things that happen, especially to righteous people? Like,
Okay.
I'm saying, we all gotta die.
Yep.
But you would think like a righteous person should never be hit by a train.
Agreed.
You know what I'm saying?
That's how. But the thing that it was not that we would think that, is that we would feel that our emotions would be challenged. But here's the thing. I gotta go in on that, because when we say that good is God from God and bad isn't, we have to understand what specifically is meant. That's why I like to use the terms agreeable, disagreeable, righteous, you understand, and rebellious. Because it's when we use good and bad, it doesn't get to the bottom of what we mean. By me, if I cook the steak, right, there's a right way to get it cooked, and there's a way that's not going to get me the results that I want. I would like it well done, right? I don't want to see no red in it. So that means I've got to cook it a certain time. If I don't, then I'm not going to get the results, the outcome that I want. If I build my house, I've got to follow a pattern of rules, instructions.
Right.
If I don't adhere to the instructions that get the results that I want, then I'm going to suffer. So that suffering isn't, God didn't say, well, here, you're going to suffer because I want you to, but no, you're suffering because of what you did. So the Quran says, whatever good you do, that is from God. And whatever ill you get, that is from yourself. We're talking about that which your hands put forth, that which you put forth, that which you did on your own accord. As for these things that you're talking about, where righteous people get killed and suffer, we hear about that also, where some of the prophets were killed and suffered at the hands of the people to whom they were sent. So being righteous doesn't exempt you from the realities of existence. If a meteorite, God forbid, hit the house of one of our family members, they're going to suffer the burn and the crash from it. Like it or not, that's the nature of things. It could be said that, well, if they were aware that the meteorite was coming in and moved out, that would have happened. But this is the way things go. So righteousness is not an exemption for experiences of life. In fact, the Most High tells us that ultimately these things are a test upon the righteous, a challenge. A fitna is the Arabic word used. A fitna meaning that you will be tasked. And how will you be tasked, we're told? By your wealth, by your family, by your provisions, by your property. Whatever has been put before you, you'll be challenged.
Like
you understand?
Job.
Yeah, like Job. like Job. So Ayub is the name that I know the same person by.
I'm
But
sorry. I
no,
forgot
no,
what
no,
you
no.
said.
It's no problem. No problem. Job is fine. That's what I'm saying. For me, what's understood is understood. Um, but so again, the thing our emotions have to deal with, because sometimes these are loved ones. You understand? I came in. I was 5 years into this life, and my father life was taken. You understand? So I know great. I know very well what it means to lose someone important to you. I started off like that. I didn't even get to be here for 5 years before someone felt the need to murder my father. You understand what I'm saying? So, but that didn't change the fact that when it comes to righteousness versus rebelliousness, that a rebellious look, it's like this: a rebellious person can get hit by a train, a righteous person can get hit by a train. A rebellious person can get a disease, a righteous person can get a disease. Okay. Now, here's what can be said: that if a righteous person, like I said, when I'm saying righteous, I'm saying a person who's doing things the right way.
Right.
Okay, then the expected outcome of a thing, if he's sawing and is sawing in the direction that you should saw, then he's not going to likely get cut. Now, somebody comes along and says, "Hey, what are you doing?" Oh, ow! Then it's going to be a different matter, right? Because now he's not doing things the right way. Because whatever you may say, well, he was distracted. Okay, and that may be the case. But all the same, when you get distracted and you pay attention to the distraction, you might get cut.
So let's take it to South Carolina. Those
Hmm.
people who got killed in that church.
Yep.
Now you said, I
Yep.
heard
Yep.
you.
Go
You
ahead.
said when bad things happen to you, that's because of what you did. What
Yeah.
were they doing bad in that church? But praying,
Okay. See here.
worshiping God.
Let me correct you. Again, the words that I'm using, I said it specifically: righteousness and rebelliousness. Okay. Neither of them are exempt from being tested or challenged.
Right? You
For
did that.
Okay, so I said that for a reason, because I told you at the beginning, for me, good and bad is not sufficient of words to use, because our understanding of it belittles what's actually going on. The reality is, if it was a gun or a tiger that came up in the church, those folks were going to die. It was just the medium, and it is just, like I said, our feelings are there because these are our own. You understand? This is, and it's like a lion. If you see a lion, I saw one show where a lion was getting attacked by a bunch of hyenas. And some other lions saw that, and they rolled up like, "Hold up," and started fighting back because one of their own was being attacked. So it's in our nature, and rightly so, to to innately connect with our own species, if you would, okay, our own kind, our own people. Not only that, not only is it in our nature, but if you have moral values, principles, and if you're upon a right idea about your nature, when you see these things happening, even to anybody suffering, regardless, irrespective of the race, but just suffering in general, you're going to feel some kind of way. So
Absolutely.
but that's an external view. That doesn't change. Like I said, if it was a meteorite, a lion, a madman with a gun, the outcome is going to be the same. So the question, the matter is what is not that they had to suffer this way. We don't like that they had to suffer this way. We hate that, and not only do we not like that they had to suffer this way, we hate the enemy, the terrorists who did it, with a passion. You understand? But these,
Now, my fault.
look,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
this isn't a video game, so it's not like somebody can what I want to say where a video game where certain things, like if you play Final Fantasy VII, you've got like a path of limiting options of what can happen or what can take place in the game. Outside of that, you understand, you can't do it. You can't move anywhere where the game doesn't want you to go. In the case of humanity, if this person is compelled with misinformation, misknowledge, corrupt knowledge, because there is knowledge of good and evil as it's translated. But again, I like to use the terms agreeable and disagreeable. It's still knowledge. A doctor in a medical room can use that knowledge. He knows that, look, I can cut you, right? I can cut you. I can cut you as for surgery to do something good for your health or whatever. But I can also cut you and let you bleed out. It's the same knowledge. Cut. cut. I can cut. You understand what I'm saying? Is knowing how to precisely cut as a surgeon is the same knowledge. It could be manifested in either way. Sometimes a person has an education or miseducation inflaming a disagreeable aspect of knowledge. And so they become possessed, if you would, for lack of better words. They become possessed. You understand? And as a result of that possess, whether it be their people, their influence, their doctrine, their ways, their ideas, and it can't even be blamed entirely on the ways. We got to deal with the medium, the receiver, the receiving end of how that individual, that maniac, interpreted his life experiences. You understand? What
Yeah.
did he do with that? Go ahead. You had something?
So you said earlier, and I think you did bring us about, people will disagree on the teachings.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about religions, but they're pretty much parallel on how we should be living. But we just had a discussion on some things that I was taught, some things that I read,
Yeah.
and of course the interpretation of what I read compared to what you was taught and what you believe in.
Yeah.
There's a few things that you just didn't agree with. Now, if you had a pastor, a man of God of another religion, I feel, having this conversation with you, you're saying something, he's saying something a little bit different. You know how that will confuse the followers of them,
It
of
could.
those religions. Hold on.
Go ahead.
Because for one, you said you don't believe in evil, as far as being Satan and all
No,
that, but
no,
that
I didn't
is
say
in
that.
the Bible.
I didn't say that. I didn't say I didn't believe in them. I said there's other words. If you understand, if you do a translation, there's okay. When the translators do this, okay, and I know this from studying Arabic. When you translate, often words carry the type of word that's used carry more meaning than what we read when we see the translated end of it. So, for example, shar. Shar is the word that translates as evil, but it also implies disagreeable. For example, if the wind, if it's too cold outside, that's disagreeable. So to you, it's evil. Not you as boss man, but to the person who's suffering. Oh, it's cold. I want to put a coat on. Well, the cold becomes an evil thing. Doesn't mean that it's like, haha, it's got horns and it's the devil backing it up. None of that. It simply means that it's at odds with what's comfortable or agreeable to you. So if it's hot outside, it's more agreeable to lighten up, you understand, the attire to be able to feel comfortable. So again, water is agreeable to us, but it can also be disagreeable. Doesn't mean that water's got the devil behind it. It simply means that if you don't know how to swim, guess what? The same thing that was good to you is now wicked.
Yeah,
That's what.
that's a little bit different. But
Yeah,
just
yeah,
going by what you said, so you said anything bad is because of you and what you
yep.
did. But then you just said you do. I do
I
believe in
got
evil.
you again, brother.
Okay,
I didn't say that anything bad. I said anything that's ill conceived. I said ill was the word. Ill conceived. If you like I said, if you do something where you don't operate it correctly or move in the correct way, you understand that you should move, that you should move. Whatever, if something comes your way out of that, okay, that's what you warranted.
absolutely, we know that. But
Okay,
so
so
you saying being in the wrong place at the wrong time is your fault?
am I saying being at the wrong place at the wrong time is your fault?
Yeah,
Okay,
right now, like
here's what I'll say to that, because there are times in your life, and like I said, I don't believe that the people were in their place at the wrong time. That's one thing. Because there's something called Carter that I accept. Carter means that the way what ultimately happens in our life, you understand, there are things that this is what was going to happen. That's why I used the exchange with lions, tigers, bears, meteorite. Change the medium from a person with a gun to a meteorite, and the outcome is still going to be what that outcome was. Why? Because that's where they were going to be at that given time.
okay, let me make sure I understand exactly what you're saying. So anything ill will that happened to you, you know what I'm saying, because of something you done, it's your fault. If
That you
something bad, if
Yep.
something bad happens to you, then and it was just meant to happen.
Okay.
I don't hear
When
evil nowhere in none of
when
that.
you because the evil that's going on, the evil that took place in that church was at the hands of the gunner. That's where the evil was. You understand? That's when we talk about evil, but that there's a reason why that's evil, and it's not because of the gun, and it's not because of the church. You
They're a
understand?
representation of evil.
Okay, yeah, that's how evil was being manifested at the time. Okay, so I got to rewind back because you said something here that made me think something. Um, Back to the because you're using the word good and evil or good and bad. You said bad. What I'm saying about the ill you get that comes from what you put forth. That's the prerequisite. What you put forth in your life, you have the ability to pursue an awareness about something. It's not the same as there's people who are ignorant willfully and ignorant unwillfully, meaning they just didn't know.
They just didn't know.
That's one group of people. But many of us are ignorant willfully, where through our lives we had the opportunity to become aware of our circumstances, our means to an end, you name it. And because of we're hard headed, we don't want to listen to mom and dad. You know, like when mom said, "Don't, I don't, I want just stay home, son, just stay home," and you want to be hard headed anyway. When you know that every time mama said something like that, she was on point. You understand? And we choose to do something anyway. I'm not going to say that this is the case for these people in the church because one, they were in a holy sanctuary.
Right.
Okay. Now, by its nature, now were the people that were in there. I don't know if they were holy people, but I know
Mm-hmm.
that the environment. Because I don't know them. I don't know if they were smoking weed the next day or if they were doing this or that or whatever the case is. They may have been on booze right before they came. I don't know. But I'm going to speak in favor of my people. You understand? So I'm going to assume that they were on a code, if you will, to some extent. Either way it goes, the nature of the circumstance, you understand, was violating their right as a human. The violation is the crime against the person who did it. The person who did it is the one who was commencing evil. And for whatever the reason, whether indoctrination, whatever the case may have spurred him, at the end of the day, the person who's looking up on the other side of these glasses is the one accountable. Remember, I told you about accountability. I'll give you an example how I believe or how I'm taught this works out. There will be people who will be brought before the Most High, the presence of the Most High, who will be asked, "Well, what did you do?" Well, I was a scholar for you. I taught in schools. I did this and that and this and that and the other. You're a liar. You didn't do that for me, for my cause. You did that because you wanted fame and popularity. You understand? So the intention behind why he did it will be exposed. And from that point, his accountability will be, rendered or whatnot, based upon not what it appeared that the person did, but what he actually did. In this case, if the matter matches up, because you can't perceive that. Hey, I'm gonna say it this way to give the benefit of the doubt for an ideology, not the benefit of the doubt, but just for this perspective, right? Um, let's say there was some good in white supremacy. The only good that might be extracted is if they just wanted to preserve themselves in peace, right? No problem. You do you do me. I'm not trying to take your life. I don't want mine taken. If it was just that, this wouldn't even be a. There would be no racism. You understand? There would be no racism. There would be no issue if it was just a people wanting to sustain themselves. But when you see what becomes disagreeable to an evil is when the way you choose violates another human being's right to exist, right to be lawfully. We're talking about unlawfully, then he can be held accountable according to whatever the community has agreed should be done. Okay, and ultimately for a community on a spiritual path, it'd be a divine law that would be manifested. Okay, however that would play out in that community. So what I'm saying here is One is you have to die.
Yep.
That's inevitable. Like I said, that's the ultimate experience you will ever, that no book, no planet, no rhyme or reason could ever contradict. You gotta die. How you're going to go about this will vary from person to person. You understand? You don't know the medium in which will lead to your death. But whatever it is, it's going to meet you if it has to chase you down, so to speak. It's going to, if you have to, there was a story of one person who was trying to flee death. He got on a plane, went to another location, and their death was waiting for him. Well, like, what took you so long? I've been waiting here for your flight to come in. So that's a, that's a what do you call, a parable. So what I'm saying here is what we're doing is we're changing perspectives, meaning the perspective of the observer of the story. The perspective that we have to get into, which we won't be able to as humanly possible, is the perspective of both the victims and the criminal. See, we're looking in from the outside. So as far as the essential nature behind things on ground level, we could never know. And we ultimately can't know how this is going to play out on the day of accountability. You understand? We don't know how that's going to play out. There may be some people who the bullet was right to connect. There may be some people who the bullet should not have connected, but it did. You understand? And what I'm saying is how things become justified is more than meets the eye. You understand? Just like when I said at the beginning of this conversation, the nature or the name or the person of the God is something there could never be a solid conversation about. And that also has to be attributed to the manifest power and authority of the Most High. How decree manifest, we can shoot at all angles, and our little human mind is going to always have a hard time because of our nature. We are emotional. We are egotistical. We are lacking in knowledge. And as I mentioned earlier, you have people who willfully choose to lack in knowledge, willfully choose to be ignorant, meaning that opportunities presented themselves for them to become more aware. You understand? To become more informed of whatever the matter may be. If you're a car mechanic, there's always an opportunity to gain more knowledge about your skill, about your trade. And the thing is that if that mechanic refuses, it's like the clip I saw where some people were lifting up a truck and the truck flips over. That's what I meant by whatever ill you put, that's what you get. That's an example of what I mean. The people are supposed to have the qualifications for this field. They're mechanics. And if they don't, it's like I do in my field. If I don't know what the heck is going on, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna call the support staff or whatnot and be like, hey, I don't know what the heck I'm looking at here. I see one server, another server, or whatever. I don't know what goes to what. I'm gonna call and get some help. If I refuse to do that, it will be upon me whatever outcome comes after that. If you're right and you're right where you should be in all, like I said, this is a battle. And I told you before, I told the people before, 1 out of 1 million sperm you were. And that was a fight. That was like your first fight to get from point A to point B. Okay, pardon me. To get from point A I had a notification. To get from point A to point B. But you succeeded. In this case, it was in a subconscious way. Okay? If you understand just how complex that whole experience was, from the mitosis, all through your life, complexities in your development, fighting off illnesses that you don't even know about, diseases coming your way that you don't even know about, some of these things because you implemented right things and you may not even have known it. If you were eating healthy like mama told you to, you understand, you may not have known why I gotta eat healthy, why I gotta eat these greens, but sometime down the line, you're eating those greens, paid off when COVID shows up. You understand? And because you got this immune system so powerful right now, it fights it off. You understand? These does it mean that um you're invincible from this? No, it's just that you were that the math added up. Your immune system versus this evil, and it overpowered it, conquered it. Let's say let's go back to this church thing. Let's say somebody got hip to what was going on, and this reveals to me something else about the matter. Was anybody aware enough? Because if you're in a house of holiness, one of the things you're trying to obtain is an increased awareness. And if you're not, then you need to question the holiness of the house you're in. If it's not increasing you in consciousness, right, of the person who was the potential criminal. I mean, I could deal with some red flags. A person that's never been here before, not even of your likeness, regardless if you feel racist or not, or whatever the case may be that people want to try to say, that's a circumstance that would draw a red flag for anybody paying attention. If you're sitting there right now and you go to your living room and there's somebody you don't know that not even your folks know sitting on a couch, you're going to likely respond some kind of way. Like, you're going to get past the what are you doing here?
That's different because you're in the house of the Lord and you don't supposed to judge nobody
I,
because they
I
don't
agree,
know
but even when you're in even quote unquote houses of the Lord have different levels. If you remember when the time of Messiah Yeshua came, they were changing money in the house of the Lord, and that affected the content and quality of what was going on there because it ended up breeding hypocrites. You understand? In the house of the Lord. So you had
it.
house of the Lord, the building's fine, but the
There you go.
presence of hypocrites was there.
There you go. And that's the problem right there with the beliefs that people follow today because there are a lot of not only hypocrites, false
Mm-hmm.
prophets. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Of course, you're supposed to seek the truth of knowledge for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's why when we was talking the last time, that brings in perception of what you read and what you've understood from your studying.
Yep.
Not you may have not listened to not one other person, but you did your studying and this is what you got from it.
Yeah.
You go talk to somebody who's reading the same book and you know the basics they got, but when it gets deep, they got a different interpretation of something that you read.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it becomes a problem because you say you're right, I say I'm right, and that becomes the problem with oh, you don't know what you're talking about.
But
Who don't know what they're talking about? You didn't even write this book. I didn't write this book. We're reading it for understanding.
I
You
agree.
know what I'm saying? And that's what make life tough today. And that's why I went back to our ancestors.
Yeah. Yeah.
We I was only taught one thing, and that was God, Jesus Christ. That's our Lord and
Right.
Savior.
Right.
That's what I was taught.
But see,
Now,
you see
as
what
I
you
grow
just said?
older, everything started changing. All these different religions, and
Yep. Yep.
you know,
But you said
it's
something very fundamental right there. You said that you did something and that doing something is what mattered. All the he said, she said, irrelevant at the end of the day if you are pursuing through it all. And you said you went back, and I would say you went forward, if you would, to your ancestors, right? Meaning the ancient knowledge or ancient
right.
sources or ancient concepts, principles, values. Okay, you went back there because the things at the present time, the what was not adding up. It wasn't the things at the present time that wasn't adding up. It was the people's failure to manifest. I could guarantee you that in each of these situations, people aren't manifesting the text of what they're saying. You cannot match what they're doing with what they're saying, or not what they're saying, but what their book is saying. That's why I tell people all the time, because somebody said, "Well, why are the Muslims doing this or the other?" Forget what they're doing. They might be going to hell. What does the book say? What does it say? If you see what they're doing matching up with what you're reading here, then okay, then you have applause for what your position is. But if they're doing something contrary to the very scriptural principles and values that they claim to stand on, these can't be used to validate or invalidate fundamental truth. I wrote a story, a little poem, and in the nature of the poem was that people of wisdom, irrespective of the way that they were upon, if they were to gather together, they'd be brothers and sisters. Why? Because essentially the fundamental principles are there. If you know, in the cases where I've had this, debates or whatnot, and you mentioned where what if you had a pastor and me and we're talking and people will get confused. The confusion, if there's going to be confusion, it's going to be inevitable to the people who get confused. But the people who are contemplative, people who do math, people who do the math properly, it's up to them to discern. That's what we have a brain for. To discern, to say, wait a minute, the pastor is saying some points there. Let me take note. Brother's saying some points there. Let me take note. And what brother's saying seems to outweigh what pastor's saying seems to outweigh what what brother's saying. And then, well, wait a minute, they're quoting sources here. So let me see the sources. Well, what he's saying, I see it matching up. Well, no, I don't know. Or at the end of the day, wait a minute, something don't seem right about either of them. So I need to go back a little bit or go forward to see what people were doing before, and to try to take it and make it relevant and see where it's relevant in my present life today. It's not enough to just explore the ancestors, but wherever we get our knowledge, whatever tree it's coming from, it's got to be relevant. It's got to be something that can nurture me. I've studied Patmetu Neter. I've studied, like I said, Bhagavad Gita. I can't even, man, my head would explode trying to explain to you the things that I've come across, and I don't play games with them. I get in deep because for me, this beating heart's only going to beat for so long. You understand? So my mind is like, well, I gotta get it right the first time.
Right.
You understand? Because I don't. Last I checked, I'm not going to have another option.
So
You understand?
let
So I got to get it right the first time. So that means I've got to pursue in such a way that my life depends on it. You understand? Because it does. So I have to. So that's what got me to the point of not being. I like a fruit salad, so to speak. Grapes, chopped apples, cantaloupe, watermelon. Put it all there. I'm going to consume it all. Meaning, I know that all of it essentially is nutritious for me. You understand? At the end of the day, and so I have to put myself in a position to where I could recognize the nutritious essence of whatever it is, wherever it is that I gather it from. At the end of the day, I had something here. Um, but the thing that you said that mattered out of all the things that you were saying, they're describing your experiences and observations, what people are doing, hypocrites and all this, is that you decided to embark upon knowledge. That's the bottom line. Many of us aren't doing that. That's why I'm saying, like I said, passionately feel for those people. They were innocent in nature, in essence, regarding their lives being taken.
Hey, give me 1 second. Somebody at my door, bro.
Okay, go ahead. Um, all right, family. I'm gonna look through some of these comments here to see if what we got going on. The last comment was, I believe in the Most High God, Yahweh, Allah, whatever we want to call it, but I don't believe in no devil. My thinking is that where religion comes in, I could go in deeper on that. I mean, brother, you're more than welcome to join the live conversation, because for me, it's not a matter of rejecting some terms in favor of other terms. If we're going to speak, if people speak, you've got to find common ground. You understand? You got to find where is it in our use of words are we in agreement? Where do we agree and build from there? You understand? Because one, that's going to increase your efforts towards unity and commonality. You understand? And that's going to be able to reveal wherein the differences are and why those differences exist in the first place. And you'd be surprised, a lot of times it'd be simply because a person didn't know. You understand? Because a person didn't know, not because they didn't read or see or hear or listen. Um, you understand? If they had the opportunity, but the knowledge didn't reach them yet. The knowledge didn't reach them yet. And each of us, we're on different grades of our journey. Um, We're waiting for the brother to return. And so that's why, I that's why I even do this platform anyway. Is because, I'm one of those that believe that, look, yeah, we stand up, suit up, and boot up. We got to do that. See, a lion even has to bare its teeth when it's in danger, right? But we also need, the lion becomes more powerful the more aware of his terrain he's a part of. When he sees the terrain, because he knows, like, okay, we know there's a river over there. You understand? We know there's like a cliff over there. We don't want to go that way, but we need to get these deer over to where this river's at, so we can, or get them close to the cliff, so we can hem them in. The dinner is served. But it takes. My point is, it takes a person. It takes the lion, if you would, being aware enough of his environment to achieve the aims. In our situation, it's not inevitable. I've said before, I don't believe that the enemy is ever going to stop doing what they're doing unless they are compelled to stop. And the only thing that's going to compel them is something that's greater than them. You understand?
I
For me,
want to say this real quick. I got company here now,
yep,
but
yep.
I gotta say this before I go.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
One thing that bothers me, and I ain't picking on you, GB, or nothing like that. He said, I don't believe in no devil.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, respect. You don't want to believe in anything other than God. But one thing about society is they pick and choose things out of the Bible or whatever they have read
Mm-hmm.
that they believe in, and then say other things, oh, that's not true.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
the Bible is the blueprint of life, then how can you just pick certain things out of the Bible, or again, whatever book you believe in or read,
Mm.
and say this is right, this is wrong? That means you saying whoever wrote this or wrote these books, you can't trust them. That
Mm.
makes sense.
Yep.
So that just don't sit right with me. How can you preach out of the book or learn from a book? They say go seek knowledge out this book,
Yeah.
but somebody say, no, that's not how that happened, or that's you don't supposed to believe that. Why not?
Yep.
I don't know, man.
I
That's,
simply think.
that's
Oh, before we go, I definitely appreciate you being here. And as you know, you're always welcome to come. I think that, ultimately, at the end of the day, this is a journey. The nature of the name of my show, or soul journey of life, it's like that. You understand? We're upon this journey, and at the end of the day, you understand, our victory, you understand, is, or opposite, is going to be identified once we reach the end game, the goal, the objective. And we, in the meantime, my encouragement to family is to continue to pursue, to never give up. You understand? It don't stop here. It don't stop. Keep reading. Read again. If you missed it the last time, read again. Increase what you read. If could be wrong, how would you know if you didn't read something else? If it's right, how would you know if you didn't read something to compare, or should it be even compared at all? Like I said, if suppose a unison of language is being spoken, or unison of meaning is being spoken, but differences of languages. You understand? But it takes a person to journey and embark upon a pursuit of knowledge.
all right. Last thing, and I'm gone. To
Mm-hmm.
me, religion causes division. That's how I feel, man.
Mm.
But I'm up
Heavy.
out of here.
Peace and blessings. Salute. Hmm. All right. It was definitely great to have the brother on this live, and had some very, 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 thoughtful questions. And my hope is that I was able to um, supply those questions with decent answer. For me, my effort is to speak as thoroughly and as honestly about what I have to say as possible. Um, Being human, there's always room for error. Now, I want to get back, because the brother did make some valid points regarding um, the nature of what we accept and reject out of what we say we stand on. So, for example, um, but I also want to build on further, because if we can't reject something simply because we cannot validate it. We might not take it into our own circle of influence, but if it's raining outside, you understand, just because you want to imagine that it's not or that it won't get you wet doesn't change whatever the reality of the situation is. Similarly, I can say I don't believe in a devil, I don't believe in hellfire, or whatever. Whatever's true about what these words mean is still going to be. Maybe there's some misunderstanding of words, or maybe the word has been incorrectly translated. Whatever the case, whatever side of that field you want to deal with, at the end of the day, there's something that meets the description of the choice of words that we're talking about. You understand? So, for example, for me, if we thought that if we consider that the devil or a devil is some invisible spookish entity, I don't agree with that because I don't find anything validating that. But if we deal with it like like what I stand on, it says the devil is an open enemy, a clear enemy, a manifest enemy, meaning you can see this devil. You understand? When you can see something, that means it's not hidden. It's not a spook. It's not a ghost. Okay. And also, I identify with the ones who's being talked to. When I know that the people of the original, quote unquote, sons of Adam, were made from burnished brass or made from darkened clay. You understand? And I see people who do not share these genetic traits, then I have to ask myself, well, if the people, if the children or the servants or the people of God are made this way, then who are these? Who are these right here that don't have any of the qualifications of these ancient ancestors? Who are these? Okay, so and when I go back and do, when you go back in time and see the type of debates, the type of um, experiences that have been recorded. Like I said, these books for me are signs and symbols. Signs and symbols. Then I have to ask myself, you understand, if I'm seeing the definition describing or talking about the devil or a devil described in these scriptures, and I'm seeing a people who readily implement those descriptions, those features. You understand? Not only that, but even in some scriptures, the location of where they're housed, where their temple or their shrine or their synagogue is described without any hindrance. Then where could you possibly get the idea that these beings aren't real when they're putting their knees on your neck, when they're choking you out, when they're killing you in cold blood as a habit? See, as I mentioned before, you deal with people as a collective, you understand, and only consider to an extent the anomaly, meaning the unique ones that don't operate as the whole. Okay, so a nice, friendly devil, that's an anomaly. But most devils, you understand, are going to come, you know, to alter your way, to deter you, to even kill you. You understand, and take your life. And this is their way. And let me tell you something. While the majority of the devils don't look like you and me, the fact of the matter is some amongst the devils look just like you and me. You understand? And I'm saying that I say choose these words intentionally, with care. So don't get caught up in what we don't understand about choices of words. But I would encourage you to pursue the knowledge of these words, that if we're going to use them at all, or at least come to an understanding that something that carries the weight or the meaning implied by these words is happening or does exist or is true. Um, the link is still there, family. We got some more time. I'll try to um keep up for a little bit more time. Should anybody have any comments or questions, you're definitely welcome to come in and make this a hot conversation to have, which I believe it is. But I believe is a necessary conversation because we can we can focus on so many aspects of our problem, but this is clearly one of them. And the only way to deal with it is to break bread peacefully. That's why I salute the brother because he's coming. He has his belief, and to me, if this vehicle that he is in is capable of moving him further. Where's the error in that? Where's the error in that? If the application of his instructions are manifested, that he applies them the proper way and sees from his own experiences that he's getting a certain result or a certain outcome. Okay, but I also am aware, like I said, we don't all speak the same language. You understand? We don't all speak the same language. And what I mean by that is we're not all necessarily communicating the same way, even if this is the English language that we're using. Our experiences has brought that about. You understand? And most often our vehement butting of heads is not because of the knowledge, it's because of our egos. You understand? Our unwillingness to be humbled in discourses of learning, of building, and realizing that at such a table, you're going to encounter different manners or methods of communicating the same truth that you essentially adhere to. That's why you need to really dig into, you understand, being able to be, what I want to say, well, be humbled, but receptive to the method of scholarship, the method of the people of scholarship, because their way of moving when it comes to knowledge and communicating knowledge is different than the everyday person. Yeah, and those trenches that we've been in, I mean, the grade of issues and problems that is caused amongst us, I mean, is massive. You understand? Um, that's why that saying that one of the tactics of an enemy is to stir up confusion. You understand? Here's what I'm going to say, and I'm going to have actually, you know what? I'll do this first. Let's see here. If you don't mind, yeah, let's do that. I'll be back in 5. Less than 5 minutes. All right, 1 2 1 2 1 2. Brothers back. Had to go handle some situations here. Um, let's see here. So I think that if our pursuit of learning and really, if our pursuit of really trying to be in unison with the truth is genuine, sincere, you understand, it will open our attention to a lot more than what we may perceive. And I believe, uh, I mean, deeply that a lot of it has to do with the manner in which we communicate. I will say again that for me, ultimately spiritual truths are seen and experienced and recognized by the heart, meaning your inner being, your true self, your that self. And a lot of times our scholastic approach with dealing with these comes short. I say here, what then is the difference between people who say, what is the difference between those who say a people were forbidden to say the sacred name, as we hear the sacred name that would follow with the meaning of Yahweh, versus the person who does not speak and who the person who knows and does not speak, and who and that statement, the person who knows and does not speak and who speaks does not know. What's the difference between saying that, hey, these people don't say that knowledge because they're forbidden to because of being of sin, versus people who speak but don't know? What I'm saying here is, if you really listen to the nature of the messages that we have, you end up with the same equation. If you're in sin, you can't possibly be in a right state of knowledge. And if you don't have proper knowledge, you don't operate the proper way. And again, that being a person who has the ability to pursue said knowledge, but becomes rebellious. And the rebelliousness includes those who perhaps, let's say, they do have the knowledge, but their ego, their passions, their desires cause them to become rebellious. And yet the people dispute. Imagine an argument over a subject which neither participant is able to truly speak on, but this is exactly what we do. Most of the feuding that you see across the world, like the brother's talking about, the variations or whatnot, in many cases, the bottom line isn't something that either respective party is capable of truly discussing. And those who are capable of discussing such a conversation, you would never hear them arguing about it. There would never be any dispute, because most likely they're not going to be in the vicinity or the environment to cater to such a thing. You know, or if they are in such an environment, it would be where they would be respective of differences of opinion, differences of views, and realize that somewhere in there is a common truth that we all can agree upon. Wisdom would be to acknowledge or recognize that God is in all its translations, and let it be. Moving on to what to do in light of this universal truth, and to be unified with regard to what is agreeable behavior towards one another versus what is not. What is ascending practices and traditional values versus what is not. And as I say, for me, it's enough to say La ilaha illallah. What that means, I'm talking about. That there is no God except the God. For me, that would be, if the essence of what you have to say is in sync with that, we'd be brothers. You may not speak of it in the same, you may not speak using the same formula, but if the essence of what you have to say is that equation right there, then how could we not be brothers and sisters? You understand? Brothers and sisters, kindred, I should say. There is no God except the God. I could go on and on without an end. I could even change that up to different equations that come out the same. Example: there is no truth except the truth. Can we agree to that there is only one ultimate truth, that there is only the truth? That there is no existence except the existence. Can we agree that there is ultimately one existence? Which is almost like saying what is and what is not is not. Can we agree to that? That if something's not, it's not. What is. I am, you are, we are, and that's all. And there's an old saying. It says, there's a person. Oh, I can't think of his name, but he said, "To be or not to be." And I would rather say, "To be and let be in peace." And in so doing, witness the name of God, experience the voice of God, the conversation of God, and bask in the experience of God. One with yourself, one with your people, one with all. The light is there, I believe, but far too often it is our own closed eyelids which clouds our ability to see, if you would, the moonshine, right? And as such, recognize that that moonshine is only reflecting its light from one greater, even though you cannot perceive it. And in that way, you understand, our conversation regarding the Most High becomes valid. We see the manifest results. We see the light while you may not be able to perceive its source. You see the manifest creation while you may not be able to perceive that which created it. You see, the results of wisdom all around you, the results of knowledge, of profound power, although you may not be able to readily identify, the source of the same. Say religion, as I'm looking at the comments here, you can't forget the book of Enoch and Yahweh's name restored. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. The other one, it say, so much more peaceful and civilized over here. We've been in the trenches. Oh, wow. Well, okay. Yeah, I mean, is there? See, the thing about this type of environment, you get all of it's here, and we have to be mindful of what we allow into our minds, because there's the unseen aspect of things that you may not readily connect with or recognize, that can misprogram you and condition you to being able to respond more receptively to the very things that you should be at odds with. Says religion, just like you say, that's what a mistake and misunderstandings come, and we all understand there's one right way. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say this: if we make our scriptures practical, if we live by them practically, I don't see how it's at all possible to encounter the collision courses that we find ourselves in. The so-called religion that we're talking about isn't scriptures. It's not scripture based, but rather based upon egos and opinions that are tied to passions, and people trying to find a way to justify, implementing their desires, their low desires. Yeah, believing in the unseen, faith. Yeah, that's one of the pillars that we stand on. The believing in the acceptance of the truth about the unseen. And how could you not? By reason, knowing that there's more to existence, more to being than you can observe with your eyes. But you know that it is. I know that when I look at the night sky, it's definitely more going on than I can see. You understand? There's definitely more going on than I can see. And, from that, I can draw certain practical conclusions, analogy, like I've shared before, the star that we orbit. I say, well, look, there's this star, and there's stars similar to this that operate in a similar way in the cosmos, in the heavens, in the celestial realms. So it only makes sense that similar laws would be operating. But one of our methods of perception we've closed our eyes to, because our opponents want us to only deal with the apparent material realm. You understand? And because they're incapable of being able to identify and realize the divine realm, the celestial realm, the cosmic realm. That's why when they look out, you got to remember their quote is life as they know it. If you don't really know life, your ability to observe it is going to be very shallow. And so existence is going to seem awfully dead to such an observer. But the people who even innately have the ability to be able to connect with spiritual insight, deeper visions, they will see it all. To give you an example, and this isn't even coming from sources that are like my core sources, but it's for me it's valid, because wherever I turn my face, I'm able to see the face of truth. It says, and I gotta remember here. Hold on. I gotta forget my train of thought, because I get so amped up sometimes. Oh, it's using the term meditation, first of all. And for me, meditation is an aspect of what I experience in part of prayer. You understand? It's like a spectrum of the same. Because it's, when you deal with spectrums of a sphere, there's different parts. You understand that when practiced or when implemented, you understand certain levels or grades of outcome are obtained. In this case, it says that this type of meditation is I'll tell you the name. Anyway, it's an Eastern based meditation, and people reach a certain level of observation, cognizant observation through meditation, that they're able to see that which these eyes aren't regularly accustomed to seeing out of existence, even to the extent of quote unquote experiencing visiting friends. That's the words that they use, the visiting of friends. And I thought that was heavy, because what was Abraham the prophet experiencing before the birth of Ishmael, their firstborn son? And in this case, they actually came to him about. They also came to him about Isaac. When it is said that when the Quran was manifested upon the soul or the heart of the prophet, it was in a state of which the Arabic word is al-mubashirat. Al-mubashirat translates as a conscious or righteous dream, a righteous vision. Again, the message was upon the heart. And I know this might seem far-fetched to people who haven't been too acquainted with endeavoring to listen to what comes upon their heart. And so when people do operate this way, it tends to seem to them far-fetched. Oh, how can that be? Well, try it out. Try it out. And I tell you all the time, if you think that something doesn't go down a certain way, try it out. Implement the instructions that are required, and see if you draw in the same outcome. See if you get the same results. And even if let's say you didn't get the results, you have to explore whether or not you came to the task in the way that the instructions require. Most righteous outcome, there can't be no righteousness without sincerity. So even if you applied the prayer or meditation or supplication, or you name it, you're not going to get the intended outcome if there's no sincerity behind it. No more than you will get a sincere outcome if you don't follow the instructions for constructing your house. It's just not going to happen that way. You don't follow the instruction. If you don't do it righteously, you can expect a righteous outcome. Now, here's the flip side to this. Let's say you follow all the instructions to the T. You build that house. Everything to the T. It's got the shiny windows, it's got the picket fence and everything. And a tornado comes and puts it all back down to ground level. See, this is what happens when you're tried and tested. Yeah, you did it right. You did it right. You got the outcome. You followed the instructions. But now, how sincere were you? How sincere were you really? You understand? Suppose you had family in there when the twister came and laid down the house. How sincere are you really? Or to what extent was your endeavor to build that house? To what extent? I mean, these are some things to think about when it comes to, and this is to kind of tie into what me and the brother was talking to regarding the things that happen to quote unquote innocent people, which may, in every sense of the term, they may be innocent. But again, that doesn't exempt them from an earthquake consuming their home with them inside, a tornado laying their house to the ground with them inside, and you standing there to only be able to look and watch it go down. What are you going to do now? See, one of the things that makes it hard for us to deal with all of this is our possessiveness. And some of this level of possessiveness is not within our right. Because in truth, nothing, including your own body, belongs to you. None. If you look outside, none of that belongs to you. And even when we make claims to things, the car, the house, the clothes, in truth, it doesn't belong to you. Because if it does, then you should be able to prevent that house from being flattened by the tornado. You should be able to stop the bullet coming because you are aware of it, for one, and two, because whatever is coming to connect is your possession and you have the power to prevent it. But that we don't have this kind of power, you understand, to prevent the unknown from showing up, then we have to question who owns it. Who does it belong to? And at the end of the day, whoever it belongs to, you understand, is the proper taker of it, and is the one that has the proper wisdom with how things should operate in this world and off of it. So, yeah, our attachments to things tends to be one of the main reasons why we become emotional to certain outcomes that happens. And again, to an extent, it's in our nature, rightfully so, because one of the aspects of existing as this form, or a created form on this planet, is self-preservation. And that includes your kindred, wanting to see them continue to exist. And so in that, we end up with this ability to sympathize. That's if you have a heart that hasn't become hardened. Don't get me wrong. When I'm saying a hardened heart, that means you've been stiffed from feeling any kind of emotions at all towards things that you naturally would be emotional towards. You understand? You see your mother cry, you might start crying too, because naturally you feel, the passion, you feel the pain. You may not even know what she's crying about, but mom is crying. What's going on? But some of us get a certain training, right, to where we're able to mask those feelings. It's not the same as hardening the heart, because it's still there. You still, see the object or the point of the story that you should be crying on. I look at some movies now, and there's certain parts that either have me bawling out laughing or getting teary-eyed. I'm looking around and make sure nobody can see me crying, but because the triggers are still there. One of the things that gets me teary-eyed is when I see victory, when I see the good guy, the good person win and get the corrupt persons. When I see the good people rescued or saved or whatever the case may be, to me those are the things that tear me up sometimes, because it's like, you saw all the drama that they had to go through, and you saw how it went down, and you just couldn't stand what the enemy was doing. There's a programming in this, if you may not recognize it, but there's a programming. But for me, not every program is bad. Not every programming is bad. The person, the individual, at the end of the day, has to have a certain kind of discernment with knowing how to select the programs that you've had installed into your mind, what is appropriate, what is inappropriate, and then move and operate accordingly. Yeah. So again, folks, that link is in the live chat. If you have any questions or comments to talk about concerning the topic. And it's a weighty topic. This is the type of topic that really there's no way to there's always going to be some people that aren't satisfied with where we might conclude or how we might conclude. There's always going to be that. And like I said, the reason for that, part of the reason may be because we're at different levels or different degrees of our pursuit on this journey. Another reason, maybe they've just shut the door on that altogether. So anything that might bring about some furtherance of insight, they're not there to receive it. And there is an aspect of this, like the brother said. I'm going to put it back up here. And this even goes out to the would-be atheistic scientists who reject a lot of the nature of what we're talking about here. But how do you look at the night sky? And you're able to suggest that there's a Big Bang and give all the details to this theory, and you'll even readily identify that is a theory having no solid evidence to support it, just other theories to support the initial theory based upon what you observe. You understand? Not even being able to observe it in a way that would give you the proper ability to break down what you're seeing. But then the people who look up at the same night sky and believe that there's life to come after this, you have to reject them. You say that we're bogus. We don't know what the heck we're talking about. And yet we're all looking at the same night sky on this planet, spinning around 24/7. You want a people to believe that it's all aimless, mindless, purposeless, but nothing that's ever come into being has ever shown any evidence to that. Everything that you see that has come into being has shown a place where it fits, and has developed a way to be, to live, to exist. Everything, and in such a complex way, in a way that's not random, that's not what do you want to say, lacking in reason. Everything from a tadpole to a giraffe, you name it, it fits. Often, there has been doubt for some time of whether or not our enemies fit. But I'm here to tell you they do. Because you couldn't be, if you are a better person today, you couldn't be that better person without being challenged. And what better way to challenge you than manifesting something in your likeness that opposes you and seeks to hinder your every step of the way? What better challenge would be that? What better tactic, what better enemy move would be better than that? An enemy that challenges you deep inside so much that you don't even recognize the enemy as your enemy, that you will find every way to justify that your enemy is not your enemy, but instead really should be considered your friend. You'll find every kind of way. If that's not the biggest manifestation of the art of deception in this world, then what is? Because this is the thing that tackles, that challenges the oneness of your own nature. Then the oneness of your own nature is a manifestation of the oneness of the Almighty. So when you've rejected the oneness of yourself, the oneness of your ancestry, the oneness of your journey, the oneness of your purpose, then in the same time you've rejected the oneness of your origin, the Almighty. So we got a little more time, family. I know most people are probably tapped out in the bed. Yeah. So I'm just looking here. I'm gonna keep my eyes on a few things. So, this is the type of thing that I would say, if your life has value. See, here's the thing I was going to say earlier, that people ultimately are going to get what they look for. You understand? You're going to get what you're looking for. If you're looking that all this is a vanity, that all this is nothing more than a waste of time and space, you're going to get that. That's what you're going to receive, because that's what you were looking for. But if you perceived, just even for a moment, that there must be something greater, there must be a greater cause, a greater purpose, a greater reason, more than meets the eye, you're gonna find that. You understand? During your journey, you're gonna find that. That's the nature. That's the law of existence. You understand? And in either case, at the end of the day, you understand? Like I said, when we encounter our absolute truths in this life, the smoke will be clear. There won't be any more clouds after that. There won't be anything blocking your vision from what you have to see. And that's why I say you have to evaluate whether or not your life is serious to you or not, whether any of this matters. Because, like I said, you only get one shot at it. And it would be a tragedy, if you would, for ones that could have ascended to greater levels of what it means to exist. But because they refuse to journey, they refuse to pursue, they refuse to stand up for the cause, stand up for the purpose, rise to the occasion, so to speak, and not tap out, no matter how hard or how complicated things may look or get, no matter how ugly things may look in life. But they keep on going. But those that refused any of that, that tapped out, that cowered out, that despaired, rolled around in disparity, and then you leave this life only to witness the very things you'd been promised that you would see, and you had no other reason to reject what you were promised. You had no other reason, because at the end of the day, if an argument was based upon is this or is it not, you really have no reason to perceive that it's not, and every reason, when you observe all that is, to perceive that it is, because as I said before, knowledge is infinite. So the very fact that we can even have this discussion talking about any of this should be profound to any thinking person. The fact that we can even have this conversation, the fact that we exist to have it at all, the fact that we exist, should be mind-blowing, to the point where a person would want to get to the bottom or the top of it, if you would, and say, look, I know that there's more to this song. I know that the music doesn't stop here. That's the sacred language. That's the sacred communication that any spiritual minded person should be hearing right now. irrespective of the terms and formulas that we've been talking about here, that we've shared, even with me and the brother sharing, and some of our formulas, our terms, our use of terms may seem different. But what I listen to during this conversation is I listen to that spirit, that heart. Because to me, that's a different language. That's a different language. That's the thing that makes you like appreciate one another. Like, yeah, that's my brother right there. I heard what he said. It didn't sound like the language. It may not have sounded like the language that I would use when I'm speaking, but the heart was talking the same. The heart was speaking the same. Our hearts were talking the same language. At the end of the day, we want facts. We want truth. We don't. We see the games. We see the hypocrisy. We see the nonsense out there. We don't want any of that. At the end of the day, I want the truth. These are the tools that I have. This is what was passed down to me. This is what we got. If this will aid me any kind of way, I'm bringing it along. I'm going to implement it and apply the instructions accordingly to the best of my capacity, and be among those of like mind. There's a saying that is attributed to the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. It says, seek out a community of righteous. And if you cannot seek out a community of righteous people, seek out a tree and stay there until you die. There's a symbol, message in that. You understand? We want to pursue like minds. We want to pursue people that share our values, that share what we stand on, our principles. But at the end of the day, if I can't find that, then I'm going to hold on, not give up, and at least at the end of the day, be unified in myself. If there aren't 1 million out there, then guess what? There'll be 1 million right in here, standing strong, suited and booted, ready to go. That's the perspective. That's the perspective, because I look at the night sky. Like I said, that's a constant reminder to me that there's more to this journey than whatever we experience on the surface of this right here. And imagine, most of our life, we only identify with what we can understand of the surface, let alone the interior to exterior. Most of this we go by what our adversary presents to us, even though we know that our adversary wishes to deceive us and to lead us astray. We still have the nerve to think that somehow our enemy will give us something useful, something that'll help us along our way. What kind of an enemy would that be? What kind of enemy do you think would exist that would help you? Can you imagine a lion sitting there like, yeah, I see you stuck in the mud and you're drying, you're drowning there or whatnot, but I'm gonna do you a favor. I'm gonna help you out here. I mean, every now and then you got anomalies. I get that. But for the most part, the lion is going to see a clear opportunity for his next meal. And everything in existence recognizes when it's in danger, its enemy, and it doesn't question it. The minute the porcupine sees the leopard, it's going to react in accordance. It's going to know that, hey, he doesn't mean me any good. I don't care what you say. So I'm going to, brace up, get ready for what I have to do, because I know that this is an enemy. The only creation that responds contrary to their instinctive nature is the black, melanated man and woman. Out of us is the only people on the surface of this planet that responds contrary in that regard. That when we see a danger, you understand, we respond accordingly. That when something could threaten our very existence, that we respond in the way that calls for. You understand? And ultimately, that we, knowing that we are spiritual people, because this isn't the first. We didn't just start talking like this since we got here in the States, ancestrally speaking. We've been on this for hundreds and hundreds. We've been on this since we've been here. So, but somehow, the element has been reversed upon us, to where our own methods, our own way, has been manipulated and used against us. A sad song, but not the only song that's left on the in the jukebox, so to speak. So I'm gonna read here. I said I have come to an understanding that come to an understanding there is a God, Most High, Yahweh, Allah, whatever, but there is no super being, devil, that's up there besides him, fighting against him. We manifest that as human. Okay, so there is what I can agree with you with, and what you said. It goes like this, and I would say something else though, because for me, the indefinite article a or an could never apply to the Most High, because like I said, the indefinite article a or an implies that there are others aside. That's when you say something is aside. Like if I'm sitting here, there's somebody sitting here, there's somebody sitting there, and that's as a human. One, we're talking about the Most High, not a human, not a human like, not anything that means human. But we're talking about that which is the fashioner and creator of everything that exists. So instead of a, it would be the definite article if we're going to use anything at all. So it would be the God, the Most High, the ever living, the infinite, the all knowing, because there is no other. You know any other the all knowings? No, there isn't. There doesn't exist. You know anything else creating things into being? Anything else keeping the Earth in its orbit? Is there anything else? When you look out at the night sky, is there anything else, keeping things perpetually existing in the way that they are? Anything else? You won't see anything else, because nothing else is, except God is. Now, I would never suggest that there's a super being called a devil. I will say that there are creations that are of different levels and of different capacities that we haven't even yet experienced yet, let alone the type of creatures that we see here on Earth. But here, when we're talking about devils, we're actually talking about a being of people that live here in our presence. I mean, I understand how sympathetic we get towards certain things. We've been on the planet for 2.5 million years, they say. 60 to 80,000 years ago, I'm going to say this again. 60 to 80,000 years ago, a type of hominid interbred with the human beings. They had offspring. These offspring ended up being, educated, if you would, to a certain extent that they became, quote unquote, civilized. But because of their beastly nature, they ended up pursuing those who were here originally, up until this day, manipulating, corrupting, deceiving, killing, etc., etc. You have your devil. And we're not talking about somebody floating around in space. You understand? We're not talking about, any of that, all this hocus pocus stuff, but a real live devil. They exist among you right now, but you've been taught to reject them being what they are because, well, initially you could say it may have been because of fear. The idea that if you call them out for what they are, they're going to do something to you. It doesn't change what they are. The fact that you know that this is what they do, if anything, your acknowledgement of said truths, once you do acknowledge these truths about the world we live in, should be to brace for whatever happens, because you know that righteousness is offensive to a devil. Living in accordance with your nature rightfully and insisting upon that which is rightfully which you rightfully should is contrary to the interest of any devil. How can a devil rule you, enslave you, corrupt you, and so on, unless you understand, unless they're able to deceive you, unless you were contrary to whatever to their nature. I'm gonna say it that way. How would it be? How would it be possible? So no, the devils with an S and using an indefinite article is not the devil. It's devils. There's a devil. There's another, and there's another. All these devils. They exist. You don't have to go too far to find one if you want. And the thing is, like I said before, while the majority of them resemble the likeness of the ancient Neanderthal, all of them don't look that way today. Some of them, as I said before, look just like you, look just like me. There's your devils, if you want to know. But as I said, there are different levels to this regarding the nature of being. Things that we haven't even experienced yet regarding what exists or what can exist. And we haven't even scratched the surface of what it means to exist yet. As long as we've been here, 2.5 million years, and that hardly puts a dent in, the reality, that surrounds us. It doesn't even scratch the surface. It only makes sense that it behooves all of us to obtain the best out of our experience here in this life I'm talking about. Because like I said, you realize that there's nothing in vain here, but everything becomes a resource for us to increase in an understanding of what's going on, why we exist, all that, because all these things are going to be fundamental tools as we keep on ascending. You don't just get this and then die and then that's all there is to it. That would defeat the very nature that we have, our pursuit of knowledge. Why spend your life pursuing knowledge, true, real knowledge, solid knowledge, to die and not be able to use it? What was the purpose of your pursuit? Why would that be your innate nature? Now, and we're talking about knowledge on so many different levels. Somebody in the back of the class is like, "Whoa, because we write it in books and then pass it down to generations." Even if you took that route, you still got to deal with the nature of our existence. Why would you pass it down to the different generations? What is our end game? Because clearly we see that there's more going on, and the more we increase in our knowledge, the more we improve our capacity to reach those higher levels of what it means to be. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And I will remind the viewers, for the time being, we still have some minutes. The invite link is still there for any person that would have questions or comments of this very weighty conversation, which unites the people with wisdom, but keeps the ignorant divided. Go figure, right? I'm telling you, you will not be able to find one person of wisdom that would be divided from their peers, irrespective of the titles and labels that people have commonly used, that would be divided from their peers, you understand, when they know that they're on the same accord. You're not going to find that. You're not going to find that from the people with wisdom. This is only an experience that fools go through. People who just aren't getting it. It's right before them for them to see, for them to experience, for them to go and pursue the knowledge of. But many of us won't do that. We won't even leave our own box. You understand? We won't leave our own box. Inshallah. Where are my nose? It's stuffing here. So I'm just saying, family, and I know that, here's the thing, some may think that, well, I'm just saying this because, of this book or this, that, and I'm this way or I think that way. But it's not like that. Like I said, for me, these are tools. They're not gods. I don't read the Quran as if the Quran was a god. That somehow it's like I said, like a god, like the Quran didn't create me, right? But I read it the same way, with the same mindset that I do when I pick up a book of mathematics, or a book of metaphysics, or a book of physics, or any of that. I read it the same way, because why am I studying mathematics, arithmetic, algebra, whatever? Why? Because I'm trying to increase in the tools and my ability to operate as a human being. Why would I pursue medicine, herbology? Why? Because I want to improve my means of existence and how I share that with other people, including, most importantly for me, my own family. And then from there, my extended family, my kindred, my people. And then, if all that is all and well, whoever else might benefit, so long as it would never end up producing a problem with my people. That was one mistake that some of our ancestors made. We were so heartfully with sharing knowledge. Yeah, there were different people who had different operations to test and try those who would come. But the problem is we didn't realize how they would be treated once they went back to their own people. Socrates traveled to Egypt, gained knowledge, but you saw what happened when he went home. When he went back to was it Athens? They weren't too well with what he was coming at them with. He ended up getting beheaded, but he still left his writings behind. So imagine that. So you're beheaded, your students' writings are behind. You're behind. They see this, they take that, are now able to see what the enemy is doing. Their enemy, we're talking about us, and manipulate and use that against us. This is what happened, and for whatever reason, our ancestors, those who were led astray, failed to perceive that as a potential problem. And now here we are. They I mean, once they got their head stuffed up full of whatever they could, it didn't take too much time later for them to start thinking like, hey, well, this is what it is. We could do something about this. We could we could rule the world. And think about this. Our ancestors had that knowledge of evil, of being able to be a tyrant over the world, but they knew that the end game for that wasn't in the best interest. You understand? It wasn't in the best interest. And then, the other problem that we have is that when we start distancing ourselves from our ancestral voice, we start getting laxed, we start getting lazy, and then things that we would rise up in defense towards, we become vulnerable and affected by. I can invalidate everything you say, my brother, because I understand unity is the key, and we must let these ego go and come together. These religions was put in a smokes of mirrors. If I use the word religion, the only definition that really stands out to me as relevant is way of life. And I often ask people, what way are you living a way essentially? I'm talking about essentially. I'm not talking about the coverings that we have, but are you living a way that's different than me? When you wake up in the morning, do I also wake up? Am I waking up too? Do we both have to sleep? Do we both have to wake up? And if we sleep, do we sleep standing up or lying down? And when we eat, do we put food into our mouth or in our nose? When we breathe, do we breathe through our nose or what? Do we hear with our ears? Do we see with our eyes? If we have legs to walk, do we walk with our legs or our hands? If all these things are alike, you will see that there is not many religions at all, but just one. But people, because of certain desires, certain egos, certain corrupt influences, that didn't come, in most cases, never came from their teachers, the original teachers I'm talking about, but from people who who saw something that they could gain out of the world, manipulate, bamboozle, and fool. And so, in order to capture that or canonize that or benefit, you've got to, come at it. They come at it with a corruption of business ethics. We patent this or patent that term. This is us right here. It's got this label. It's got this name. So if you have this name and this label, boom. You're part of this team. And anybody who doesn't have this label, sorry about your luck. But I'm telling you, the teachers never taught that. I would challenge anybody to find in the Quran, which was recited by the Prophet Muhammad, in its language, not any silly translation, words that would define a people in the way that people do today. The word Muslim was never used like that in the Quran. Sorry, but it's not there. People were either people who were of the faith or faithful, mu'mineen. Mu'min is the Arabic, or they were kafirin, people who were rebellious. That's it. All people were identified on the face of the earth as you either willfully surrender to the truth, to the Most High, or unwillfully, but all the same, all surrenders to the Most High. That's what the word Muslim means. It's a simple term. It's like saying you're a human being. That's it. It's like, you're a human being and not a dog or a cat. But, when Western powers started to conquer, that's when these ideologies came into a different effect. The same thing, if you go in the time of many of the prophets that we read about biblically in other parts of the world, you won't find that they had this type of divisive talk. You understand? They weren't talking about religions. Nobody was talking about religions. How come that we keep saying this word with the plural of an S, and no wise person ever came like that? You don't find this in their conversation. Not Yeshua, Jesus, not Muhammad, not Buddha, not Mahavira, not Lao Tzu, not Confucius, not what's his name? I can't think of it. It starts with an A. Anyway, from India. Was it Anjangu or something like that? I can't remember. But my point is none of these people this wasn't their way. They didn't do this. I'm telling you, look at the life of the Buddha. If you don't, and try to find where he was teaching them something that it would end up becoming a title. You understand? In difference of everything else it ended up becoming a title to make them separated from everything else and divided. Where to dispute. Show me where he even taught them to dispute and to develop enemies because of it, and to be in harsh conflict with your fellow people, your fellow human. Show me these things. You won't find the people of wisdom doing this, is what I'm saying. This isn't the conversation of people of wisdom that do these type of things. So stop attributing to the people of wisdom something that isn't theirs. Religions with an S comes from the masses. Ignorant fools. It was ignorant fools that caused the Catholic Church to divide and become East and West. It was ignorant fools that says, no, here's what Martin Luther has to say. We're going to become Protestants. No, we think there's something more. We're going to become Baptists. No, we think there's something more. We're going to become Methodists and Jehovah's Witnesses and stuff. Messiah Yeshua never taught none of that. Messiah Yeshua, Jesus, was not a Protestant, not a Baptist, not a Buddhist, but he did surrender to the Most High. So you can translate that accordingly. You can translate that because, like I said, use the meaning of the words because that's what they did. They didn't get caught up like this. When he came, when he saw the people that were corrupted hypocrites, he was on that. When it came to being at odds, he was at odds with actual hypocrites, with actual enemies to, the way. Nothing else. Nothing else. All these terms that we're using, he didn't even call. Even his most immediate followers at that time, the terms that we use to describe the people today, they didn't use then. They didn't use any of those then. They didn't use them. Personally, you say you're a Christian, I have no problem with you saying whatever you are. The question would be are you living in accordance to what these words mean? And if the words are implied to mean that they are in the likeness of Messiah Yeshua, then ask yourself, would Messiah Yeshua be at odds with someone who appreciates him just as much as you do? Would he be at odds? Because I don't share your label that he never used himself. Would he be at odds? Yeah. So, when I'm describing myself with terms, I'm using meanings, with them and not labels. So even when I say Muslim, it's not, here's a badge, right? That's not what the word for me. That's not what it means. It's just not what it means. Nowhere in the text has the word ever been used in the way that people are using it today. It's not there. It's not there. The Quran is the source book that we're talking about. It's not there. In the Bible, the terms used that people are using today, it's not there. You got some people amongst in the term that they're using, Jewish. It's not there. It's not there. And even the term Jew was a nickname, so to speak, and a nickname identified by external people, not from amongst. It didn't even come from amongst their ranks. It came from external people who called them this. So no matter where you look, you will never find any people of wisdom being the authors of the division that you see their so-called students, followers, believers, whatever you want to say, practicing today. You don't find that from, I guarantee you don't find that from any man or woman of wisdom who ever existed on the face of the earth. You won't find it. You won't find it. You won't find it. So where we went wrong, I'll tell you. Our egos. That's it. You understand? Our egos is what makes you not want to be humbled in the presence of learning. And to be stuck and rigid to being able to hear something from a different language. Imagine some people speaking Chinese came to me talking. They're talking in Chinese. I don't know any Chinese. Okay. I might even tell them that, like, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't speak Chinese. But I would still be respectful enough to hear them out. You understand? Like, hey, they've got something to say. Maybe there's more to it than what they're saying. Maybe I need to pay attention to behaviors and stuff, because maybe they might mean me well, they might not. But how would I know if I shut my ears, shut my abilities to reason and to observe? How would I know what the person's intention was? And that's what I'm saying about all our situations. Like we talked about the church and the gunner and whatnot, At the end of the day, family, we need to increase in awareness. We need to increase in being in sync with what it means to exist. You understand? And that means that all these names, these great profound names, these unarguable names with the meanings that of what they mean, we need to realize that these are echoed all across the earth in the communities. So at the end of the day, wherever you turn your face, there's the face of God. How is it that we can hear that statement, that truth, but still find reason to be indifferent with one another when wherever we turn our face, there's the face of God. There's the presence of truth right there. Look at your brother, look at your sister, even look at your enemy. And you'll see something that's true. Your enemy's not joking, is he? How do you know he's your enemy? If he's not manifesting the true features of what makes him your enemy in the first place, how would you know? So even he's bearing witness to the truth in your presence. You know that he's going to be up to something. You know that he's got some scheme, some gimmick, some game, some way that he's going to try to use to defeat you. Because he's your enemy. That's what they do. Why be surprised? Oh, yeah. When you look at it, there's no real reason for us to be divided amongst ourselves. There's enough room for you to know. There's enough room for me to know too. There's enough room for her to know too. There's enough room. Not just you. You're not the only one here. You're not the only one here. I'm not the only one here. So how would I ever have the nerve to perceive that what I know, what I hold on to in my own little brain, our own little pea brains that we have, these little tiny specks on the earth, is absolute? As we've already mentioned, we said God is. So even what absolute means cannot be attributable to what this is, this form. It can't. This is not capable of containing absolute. So since you know, if you're aware, knowledge of self, he who knows himself, if you're aware, you realize that no matter how hard you try, you will never be able to contain the absolute in this little brain. That means you're always going to be short-sighted in some way. There's always going to be an abundance, a massive amount of stuff you just don't know. There's going to be more that you don't know than what you think you do. So since that's a fact, scientifically, philosophically, you name it, even spiritually, even your book is telling you this, then how can you shut the door when someone comes speaking something that perhaps the reason you don't understand is because you don't know what they're talking about? And if you knew what they were talking about, at least enough to be able to connect and relate, your perspective might change, or it might improve, or it might increase in what you stand upon. But how could any of that be possible when we shut these doors and insist instead on the preference of things that keep us divided? I'm telling you, I am a Muslim. I have no problem with saying that. For me, it's only a term that will cause you to be divided from me if you choose to be indifferent towards what that means. That's your problem. But I'm not giving you any reason to be divided from me if I'm coming at you with what I declare, peace. If I'm coming at you with what I declare as peace, genuine peace, well-meaning peace, what reason would you have to be at odds or be indifferent with your brother who's shown you no hostility, no gimmickry, none of that, simply because I may not bear whatever title you've declared upon yourself? I don't find that. I don't find it in the way of wisdom. But as my mother would put it, each to their own. Each to their own. Quran says, "Lakum dinakum waliyadin." To you be your way, to me be my way. And the only reason why our way might differ or go at odds, it doesn't. Here's the thing. I could be wrong. You could be wrong. We both could be wrong in a certain situation. And then our feuding, our disputing, our division, all built on both of us being wrong at the end of the day. But how would you know? How would you know when knowledge is infinite? How would you be able to validate your wrongness or rightness unless you had something to contrast it with? How would you know? I mean, many of us, we reach a point to what we already know. We already know. What can you tell me, brother? I already know. Even while we have the book in our hand. Because what? You're able to cite where a certain verse or certain passage is with ease. The words might be right there in front of you. Still doesn't imply. It still doesn't imply that you know. You just have memorized words. Not the same thing. Not the same thing. You know, some of our elders, the reason why we respect them is because we know that they've had years of what? Experience in their life. And when we look and see how they are today in their life, when we see them being upright and we see them through all these stages of their life, and here's the outcome, we get respect because we know that, hey, look at them now. Look at what they've been through. Imagine the type of wisdom they've obtained along their way at the age that they are now. Imagine the issues they may have had in their life and their journey that they've overcome. So yeah, we definitely salute the elders. Yep. So at the end of the day, family, it's like that with me. You know, I enjoy breaking bread because that's a nutritious way to build, and nutritious on multiple levels, spiritually, mentally, physically. You know, there's a saying when we eat, right? We eat in a sitting posture. So if you're breaking bread with one another, that means you got to sit and deal with one another's presence because you all got to sit there. You're eating, and often, you know, when you're sitting and breaking bread, you're dialogue, you're communicating, you're talking, you're as one might put it, chewing the bit. And if you have a good sense of principle, you end up benefiting when you go up and go your separate ways. See, here's the thing. While some people might take it as a negative, when I said lakum dinakum waliyadin, to you be your way, to me be mine, it's not necessarily negative. We come to an intersection in the road. We're on a journey. Eventually, we have to, you know, part ways. There's enough room. There's enough room for you and me on this journey. There's enough room for us to win, and there's enough room for us to lose. You understand? We get what we strive for at the end of the day. So for me, like I said, it's simply enough for me to say God is, and go from there. But after I said that, there obviously needs to be something that comes with saying that. So by me saying that, there needs to be validation, and the validation comes in the translation of my faith in that through what I do, through what I do. Words, you know, have to have its sibling, if you would, actions. These are the key components of what sincere faith is all about. Because for me, it deals with recognizing the wisdom of our ancestors. You understand? Recognizing first, even before that, the oneness of the Almighty, the oneness of God. Recognizing the presence of the heavenly host, that which, you know, resides in the celestial realm, the cosmos, the heavens, space. Realizing that this isn't all it. This isn't it. That there's a lot more out there, not just Earth. Recognizing the signs and symbols in the scriptures that have been passed down, wherever, to whomever they've been passed down to, There's scriptures that we don't even know about anymore because they've been burned or destroyed. But one thing you can know is not too much is going to be able to exist long that claims to be of God. You understand? Because there's something about the human response to falsehoods. It's like when we see something on a movie, right? And or an actor or a show or a performer, if there's something not authentic about it, we stand out like, hey, that dragon's fake. Now it's funny because in other movies we might not say that. Why? Because if it looks like it's real, we tend to be content. Like, hey, the movie, everything, all the graphics and stuff looks real. But the minute you see a string or something, they're like, hey, that's a fake dragon. It was fake in the other movies too. But this one, you just caught it out. And so what I'm saying here is that both cases, you know that the dragon is fake in the movie. It's their acting going on. There's illusions. There's CGIs, whatever you call it, going on. But when something is true, even if you cannot grasp it, the way you would like, the heart screams it out to you like, wait a minute, I just heard the truth. I witnessed the truth. And imagine somebody comes at you, here's what took place. You're like, nah, that doesn't add up to what I just saw. Somebody say, well, is it possible for both to be right, that you didn't see it and think you saw it, and another one calls you out for that? It's possible. It's possible to be self-deceived. But think about how deep that goes in. Also, think about what feeds into that. You're not going to plant an apple seed into the ground and an orange tree comes out. So what I'm saying by that, you're not going to get the outcome that's only attributable to righteousness. You understand? By not being righteous. You understand? It's just it doesn't work like that. This is the outcome that fits what it goes. So if you've been deluded somehow, you're not going to be able to attribute that to righteousness. Right? Because you could short-sightedness, being misinformed, whatever, but it's not going to be because of righteousness. Okay. So we're at the third hour. We're past the third hour now. So with that said, I do encourage you to stay tuned. Wednesday, I do have a live schedule for Wednesday. This one, excuse me here. Is and I hope that we get viewers and whatnot, participants in this, because I want our voices. I would like our voices to be heard regarding the matter. The name of the live is All Eyes Still on GMJ. There are people who would like that our conversation is dead on the matter. And to me, if that were to happen, that would be like copping out. That would be like, giving up. It'd be like giving up. And giving up on what? On a principle of a cause. See, many of these people, just like a lot of the stuff we've been talking about, what causes many people to go astray is being stuck on a limiting perspective and not seeing the bigger picture. And many aren't seeing the bigger picture of why there's an insistence on standing up for the brother, standing up and constantly, dealing with the matter. You understand? So that's Wednesday. So hopefully you'll be able to come back on that day, and we'll break bread there as well, on that as well. Hopefully, like I said, hope is dealing with the unknown. When you have a optimistic interest in the unknown. You don't know that it will come out this way, but you hope that it'll come out this way. Hopefully, the things that I've said here trigger some thought, and keeps the light on. And as we say, if there was error in what's been said, not error based upon simple differences of opinion, but actual error. That may have been said that that those things, there's forgiveness about that. I also encourage you that if you are able to support the cause, support the platform, and know that every effort makes a difference. You understand? It all makes a difference, and it does help in the quality and my ability to present the content, because it frees me up to being able to have that time and capacity, to do that and to do other things that are all tied into this. Your support, and you see the Cash App up there. Yeah, that about sums it up, folks. Brothers and sisters, I do appreciate your participating and listening to this live. Hopefully, if I put any of you to sleep, I put you in a sleep of an inspirational type of sleep, as I say, al mubashirat, that divine, that conscious state of sleep, where while the body is resting, is experiencing elevation and enlightenment of a sort. You know all right, with that said, this is your brother Abdul Wadud, aka Quest Man, coming at you with another live soul journey of life, the conscious black social media. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Shalom, hotep, peace and blessings be with you. Have a blessed rest of your night. Take your day, whatever the case may be. Keep on manifesting love. Take care. Bye.